विद्महे महातेजाय धीमहि तन्नो सूर्य प्रचोदयात् ॐ भास्कराय विद्महे.
Greetings. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Mages, here with LVX 777. You have options. You have options, most certainly. I hope that today's option is actually to have a great day. I'm smiling because I see this big ass spider web right in front of me. It's like super long. It only just now occurred to me. But anyways, it's a great day. It's always a great day. And the thing is, what I found from one of my psychology mentors is that it's damn near impossible to be depressed or remain in anxiety when you can cultivate an atmosphere of gratitude. As cheesy as that may sound, if you find yourself feeling very anxious or falling into a state of depression or state of inactivity, what I found is that it really helps me to shift out of that state because it's a mental state. What I found to really help me shift out of that is actually finding different things in my daily life to be grateful for. And I start small, and I start with things that are under my control. For example, I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my body. I'm grateful for the ability to be still and calm myself down in case I happen to get upset. You know, anything that you can find to be grateful for, just take a few minutes to make a mental list. And just when you list each one of those items, take a moment to kind of just ruminate, to kind of really appreciate it. And what you'll find is that you start to build an atmosphere that takes you out of the anxiety and out of the depression and into a more forward thinking, orienting towards success and problem solving state. Life is all about states. We find ourselves in states constantly. Another word for states would be a trance. We constantly find ourselves in trance. And we've said that before many times. Multiple books have said that as well. The thing isn't to try to get out of trance. The thing is to be in control of which trances you're in. And that really comes into the whole aspect of know thyself. Because if you know what trances that you're in, if you know how to identify where you are, you can move yourself intentionally. If you don't know, then you're being moved against your will. Greetings, everybody in the chat. Greetings, Spree McGee. Greetings, Divine Goddess. Sunshine Chick, good to see you. Red's Ribbon, peace, peace. Janae Owo, good to see you. Mad Bear, been a while. Simply Alon, greetings, greetings. Tanno Surya Prachodayat. So another important aspect of finding yourself in a state of gratitude is you start to realize that you do have options. A common theme with people who do feel that they're in a state of depression or find themselves in a state of anxiety or immobility is that it's very difficult to see the options that are in front of you. So when you get into those states, they're directed inward and they begin to close off visibility to different options. So it helps to exercise a moment of gratitude, and that kind of opens you up to see that, okay, well, maybe I can find a way out of this. Another thing that I've learned is to trust my unconscious mind, to trust your unconscious mind, because the unconscious mind has a whole lot more control over things than your conscious mind does. Literally, your conscious mind's only job is to just label things and to just designate this goes there. The unconscious mind does most of the work, because after the labeling, after setting the context, the content that fills the context is the substance. It's what's doing the work. Greetings, Society Ejects. Greetings, Aset Aja. Kalio, greetings, greetings. Timon, Timon, peace, peace. So yeah, just another thing, in case you haven't heard already, starting the book study group back again in January, and we're really orienting towards mastering the Kabbalah. But before jumping right into that, we're going to do just a little bit of mental yoga. And my recommendation is to start with this book here, which is called The Paths of Poverty and Nivritti. And we're going to go through a series of about 5 books from this author. And yeah, just like before, we're going to go one chapter at a time and discuss our findings on these chapters Sunday afternoons. And then come June, we're going to dive back into the mystical Kabbalah with a much more sharpened perspective on these things. Now, simultaneously, what I'm doing, and you can choose to do as well or not, is I'm going over about 5 more Kabbalah books. Right now, I'm reading The Ladder of Lights by William G. Gray. And as I go on, I'm doing these audio books, which you can find on my YouTube channel. And, you know, they may or may not stick around. After this, I'm diving into The Tree of Life. And then there's another one by Gareth Knight that was written after Mystical Kabbalah. So I hope to get all these different perspectives and pull out some very, very useful understanding. So there's your heads up. In about 2 weeks or so, we're going to get started with this book. So you still have time to get it before it is sold out. Mara Fakir, peace, peace. Changing spiritually. Peace, bro. Lanny Alderdice, peace, peace. How long am I staying on today? It depends. It may be for maybe 2 hours, or if people jump on, it might go a little bit longer because, conversations roll. Just before Mystical Kabbalah, we're going to go over this one as well. And this is one of my favorites from the Bihar School of Yoga. This and Jnana Yoga, those two are 2 of my favorites. And these books are really short. They can be tackled in a month. But basically, Samkhya Darshan really goes over the Vedic perspective of the creation of the universe. It's not difficult or super complex. It's very clear, very concise. And I think that it will help anyone who reads it to greatly understand or have some background on understanding the Tree of Life. So I've got to say that multiple times just to make sure that nobody misses it, if you want to be a part of it. And I don't see why not, being that you're on my channel and everything. Oh yeah. Speaking of which, if you guys are members of the YouTube channel, the link should be in the membership tab, and it should be the same link as before. But if not, I'll go ahead and post it there. Tanno Surya Prachodayat. If anybody's still doing their daily mantras, then you'll know that this is Surya's mantra. And Surya is the deity that presides over the solar energy. And the solar energy presides over Sunday. Queen of Swords, Greetings, greetings. Bear with me just a second. I'm currently sharing the link in the YouTube membership tab, just in case anybody wants to hop on. Prachodayat. Okay. All right. So yeah, hopefully you guys had a chance to listen to the audiobook, first 2 chapters that I did for Ladder of Lights. Even better, I hope that you have the book. I know that somebody commented and said they had it on the shelf forever, but haven't started it. So far, it's pretty good. Pretty good. And I say pretty good in the respect that he's not really explaining it in like super complex terms. It is kind of down to earth still. And he's actually starting from Malkuth and going upward, as opposed to all the other books that start at Kether and work downward. I thought that was pretty interesting. Oh yeah. Gotta switch my mantra here. There we go. Classic. Ascending. Peace and peace. So again, it's important to understand that you do have options. And that includes anything in this life. And the whole reason that this is a topic is because I understand that because of the season that we're in, a lot of people are kind of finding themselves in a bit of a lower energetic state. You know, for some people that does result in depression. For some people that just results in not being as productive as they'd like to be. But it's important to remember that right now is not forever. Right now is not every single day. For some reason, this is something that just falls over everybody. And it makes sense, you know, we're made of matter, we're made of the 5 elements. And the 5 elements all move together in waves. And right now the entire planet is going through fall, which is a low energy state, a death state. So it's often reflected in the emotions, right? It's often reflected in our health, in our mood, in our mind state. But now is not forever. So if you are somebody that feels that way, just understand that you do have options. And it really helps if you focus on things that you're grateful for, even if they're small. Spending some time in that state can really help move you out of the low energy vibe, for sure. LaShawn Newman asks, what's the name of that song? Which one? The one that's playing now or the one that just passed? Trambakam. Whoops. There we go. Perfect. All right. So that's it. I posted it in the chat. Mamritat Om Trambakam Yajamahe Surandim Pushti Vardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandanat Mrichor Mokshia Mamritat. So, since we're not specifically focused on any book today, does anybody have any topic that they'd like to discuss before I take it elsewhere? We grow natural. Greetings, greetings. All good. All right. So Ascending asks, I was in a meditation and the name Ishtar kept popping up. Is that a common entity or has no one ever heard of them? Yeah, Ishtar is very common entity. Very common entity. Definitely a savior type, solar type. Actually, she can go for both the solar and the Venus type of energy. But yeah, she represents one of the crucified saviors, one of the earliest versions. There's a lot of information you could find. Ishtar is actually extremely popular. But if that's what came up for you in meditation, then I highly suggest following that rabbit hole. Ishtar is a pretty important entity. You've never heard of Ishtar? Zadis Art, peace. Matthew Watson, peace, bro. Scorpy asks, what's your biggest tip? I think that it'd be best to clarify that question just a little bit more. We Grow Natural says, I saw the title and came here. Explain about us having options. It's important to understand that you do have options. And specifically, you have options to solve the problems presented to you. Most of us put way too much emphasis on the conscious mind and its ability or inability to actually solve problems. Your unconscious is the true problem solver because it is your unconscious mind that connects the dots that your conscious mind eventually gets to after it's done. I like to tell myself that I trust my higher self and that it's never let me down. And when it comes to those moments where I may not be able to see the pathway clearly, I understand that there is an aspect of myself that knows the answer. And I leave it there until the answer arises. Whereas many people get very frustrated and fight themselves and beat themselves up because they can't find an answer. It doesn't always come immediately when you want it to. Sometimes you have to let it connect. The subconscious mind, it's unconscious, right? It's outside of the conscious awareness. So there has to be a great deal of trust and faith in yourself. If you understand that you have a problem and you understand that the resources exist to solve that problem, that's all you need. Now the remaining factor is trust, that your unconscious mind will put the pieces together. Now, that's an option that many people don't understand that they have. Many people believe that they have to fix everything with their conscious mind. And if they can't, then they're not good enough. And this is just putting unnecessary stress on ourselves, especially in a time like the holiday season. All right. There are some people who are struggling to keep up with bills and struggling to buy all the fancy new toys that are out for their kids and their loved ones. A lot of unnecessary stress that we put on ourselves. And a lot of that unnecessary stress comes from the idea that you don't have options. Anxiety and depression, these things come from the effect of believing that you don't have options. Motivation and inspiration comes from how you see the future. If you look at the future and it seems like a burden, it seems stressful, if it seems like you don't have any options to do what you want to do, it actually takes energy away from you. But if you feel like you do have different options and different ways to do things, different avenues to go, it fills you with energy because you feel as if you're in the driver's seat as opposed to being pulled in a direction that you don't want to go. A person who feels like they have fewer options is typically unhappy. So that's what I meant when I say that you have options. I think it's very important for all of us to understand that we have options. And even if you don't see it clearly, you still have an option to solve that problem. And it resides in the unconscious mind, which is always active, which is way more intelligent than your conscious mind. For sure, for sure. King Baphomet, peace, peace. Jesus says, last night I had a dream where I was looking at the screen that had 42 laws of Ma'at and then her face to the right of it, which gives me chills in the dream. Any idea what that could mean? I think that based on what you wrote, you have enough information about the 42 laws of Ma'at to kind of put together a meaning. But it definitely sounds like a part of you is making progress in what you're studying. Because what does the 42 laws of Ma'at represent? Right? Represents balance. When you look at a screen, what does that represent? That typically represents the potential of human technological evolution. The screen is a representation of all of our technological prowess, all of our communication, all of our business, all of our pleasure. Everything is absorbed from the screen, from this black mirror, which is our most powerful device, which has the very real potential to surpass us in its ability to calculate. So for you to observe the 42 laws of balance on your screen, maybe you can put those two symbols together with your unconscious mind. So yeah. We grow natural, Scorpy. I appreciate that you guys understood that. Matthew Watson asks, have any advice for people trying to have their first full contact with an entity? Yes. So you definitely want to understand that this is a communication. And with it being a communication, you want to have the terms of communication clarified. What do I mean by that? If you're trying to have full contact with an entity, you've got to be speaking some similar language, right? And as an example, that's what the tree of life is. The tree of life is like it's like a master key, a master glyph, right? For an example, I don't know if you guys work with any cryptocurrency or anything like that, but in general, you've got your dollars, right? Your currency. If you live in America, you got your US dollars. On the other side of the internet, you've got these crypto coins. Now, you can't just turn your dollar into a crypto coin. You have to have this medium of exchange. So you download this app, which is an exchange, and you put your dollars into it, connected to your bank account. And this medium of exchange converts your dollars into something else that can be used to purchase these crypto coins. So having a system, much like the tree of life, is like having that exchange, right? We can use this exchange to translate external experiences into internal experiences and vice versa, using this medium of exchange. Likewise, say, for example, if you're playing Fortnite and you want to buy a new skin, you can't just take your dollars, you can't even take your credit card and buy the skin. You have to buy V-Bucks, right? So you take your dollars and you convert them to V-Bucks. Then you take those V-Bucks and buy the skin or the emote or the gun wrapping that you want. A lot of different games work that way. A lot of different things work that way. You've got to have a medium of exchange. So you take what you currently use on a daily basis and convert it into something that can be used on the other side. So when working with these spirits, if you want to have direct contact, it helps to have a medium of exchange, right? Because this is an energetic currency that you're dealing with, right? These aren't entities. These aren't things with arms and legs and voices. These are patterns of energy. Now, you're a pattern of energy as well, but in order to have contact and connection with a different type of pattern of energy, you're going to have to convert that communication. Does that make sense? So my advice is to understand your communication, understand your key that you're using, understand your system. For example, Goetia is a system, right? It's a system of working with 72 slices of energy. Now, from my experience, from my studies, there's only two entities that exist, kind of, sort of. There's only one or zero, but it's broken down in divine masculine and divine feminine. That's all that exists. And when I say divine masculine, divine feminine, I don't mean a superman and a superwoman. I mean an entity that is a representation of consciousness or context. And then an entity that is a representation of content or matter. Those are the only two things that exist. They intermingle with each other. So when we use a system like Goetia, that gives us 72 doors or channels to interact with the content, right? And there's a million different systems out there, and each one of them are just an exchange system to communicate with the inner realms. So there's not a bunch of different entities and deities floating around in the space realm. There's only consciousness and matter, but we use different systems, whether it's Christianity or Islam or Luciferianism or Kabbalah or anything. It's just an exchange app for energy. So pick one, learn it, learn the ins and the outs of it, and then work with consciousness and matter. And you can call it whatever you want to call it: angels, demons, spirits, gods, goddesses. It doesn't matter what you call it. All that matters is the experience that you gather from working with the system, because it's the experience that's happening on the inner realms, and that's where the change happens. Let me know if that resonates. Lahiri, peace, peace. Let's see. Yeah, Society Eject says, I just talked to my brother about this last night. Stop taking on unnecessary stress and problems. So many people just have this, and I get it. It's the aspect of our personality that is called ego. It's the aspect that the Vedics called ahamkara. Its purpose is to cling, right? It has a tendency to cling and to grab. And if we don't understand our mind, we go around clinging and grabbing onto stuff that doesn't belong to us. And that's the whole reason that we suffer. That's the whole reason that we have pain, is because we're clinging onto things. Attachment leads to suffering. That's one of the oldest maxims on the human race. The things that we attach to, it causes us suffering, because this is the land of impermanence, which means everything changes. But if we have this attachment issue, when the change comes, we suffer because we don't want things to change. But understanding deeply that this is the realm of change, hopefully you also learn not to attach to things. Now, it's excellent to appreciate things in the moment. For example, I enjoy being here. I enjoy talking. I enjoy communicating back and forth. I enjoy learning and studying. But things change. They always change. Sometimes they change slow. Sometimes they change immediately. But the important thing is to flow with it, to flow with it. If you're rigid and stiff, you will be broken. But if you're flexible, you adapt and you get stronger. Again, this is why I say trust your unconscious mind, because it's the unconscious mind that sees behind the labels, it sees behind the attachments. The conscious mind, it defines itself by the attachments. Like I said, the conscious mind, its only duty is to label and categorize and give things names. But if you rely on that and strictly that, what happens when your categorization system you find has been faulty and flawed? Now your whole world is turned upside down. You got to leave yourself open to be flexible to change, because you don't know everything. Nobody does. It's not even possible for us to know everything. But if you have a medium of exchange, like I mentioned, to rely upon, you can start to understand the world in a bit more expanded manner. LOMGTV, what's good, my man? You're always eating that good food I see on your stories. Setha and True, greetings. Breezy asks, what happens to our soul and spirit after death? Well, it depends what dies. And I know you're talking about the body, so the body dies. It really depends, because every single person is a case by case basis. There's a lot of factors that come into play. For example, the accumulated effects that you put into motion, right? The accumulated effects that were put into motion before you gathered a body. Because all this is patterns and patterns of energy, patterns and patterns of energy. And if it's an equation, really, the purpose is balance and harmony, and eventually for consciousness to separate from matter, or to realize that it is not intermixed at all. So if you haven't reached that point, then you're going through that equation until you come to that realization. And some people call that enlightenment. And it will take however it needs to take. It'll take as long as it needs to take. So when your physical body dies, that part of the equation is complete, but the rest of your consciousness that is attached to any part of matter is going to come back and finish its balance. So in other words, if I live my life doing good deeds, but I'm attached to, sexual pleasure and good food, then I'm going to come back until I'm not attached to sexual pleasure and good food. Because the thing is, sexual pleasure doesn't exist and good food doesn't exist. These are illusions based on the five senses. The five senses don't exist. But because we are attached to the experience of being in a body, we believe that's all that is real. We believe that is all that's real. So we continue to manifest it until we have an inner experience and learn that there's more to reality than what the five senses pick up. Until we actually learn that, I don't mean just hear it. I mean, until you actually learn it, you're going to keep going through it until you learn it. This is not about books, and it's not about words, and it's not about catchphrases or slogans or buzzwords. It's about inner experience. So it doesn't matter if you buy all these books. It doesn't matter if you read them all. What matters is if you get an experience from what's in the books, because that's what you take with you. That's the harmonizing and balancing. That's doing the work. Contemplation, meditation, prayer, and ritual. All these different things come into practice, not just for the sake of doing them, but because they are to lead you to an inner experience. And all of magic and spirituality leads you to the same place. And you'll find it if you keep doing it. Austin Awalt, peace, my friend. Justin Simmons says, I had a dream I was being initiated by the writer of Tatwa Shuti, but I was hesitant in the dream, but a little conscious of the hesitation feeling. Interesting. I think that's good because it shows an honesty. It shows an honesty of you knowing where you stand, right? Interesting. I'd look a little bit more into that, especially since we've been going through the practices. Sky L, peace, what's up? Yeah. Black Knight asks, could the pain be possibly tied into one's karma? Absolutely. Always, always. And the truth about karma is it can be transcended, but the core principle of it is understanding the concept of attachment. Attachment. Some of us are attached to our karma, right? The main end goal is to understand that consciousness was never attached to matter in the first place. Until you come to understand that, yes, it will be karma and it will be pain. That's just how it is. That's just how it is. Peace, peace, useless familiar. Scorpy asks, how can one get back to themselves after scrambling their neural pathways by taking shrooms a few months back? Well, the good thing about that is that we're not eggs. So when we are scrambled, we can go back to being unscrambled. So that's a good thing. We're not eggs. We're more like chickens. And chickens are able to lay eggs repeatedly, sometimes without being fertilized. So there's eggs to experiment with. There's eggs to drop, and some eggs do become full-grown chickens, but others don't, and that's okay. Some eggs get scrambled, some eggs get folded up and put into an omelet, but those aren't the only eggs. There's more options. Time, however, continues to present those options. Don't try to unscramble yourself. Just let it be. Let it be. It takes time. Not always as quickly as you want it to be, but it takes time. Heroin Father, aka Young Dagger Dick. Cosmic Stylist, peace, peace. Yes, yes. Zohan, what's up, what's up? Tony Martinez, peace, my friend. Light Bearer, greetings, greetings. Thank you, Mad Bear. Cosmic Chlorophyll says, hey family, I'm so glad you spoke on food and sex being an illusion. I've been slowly pulling away from them both, my two addictions. I'm trying to eat healthier, if that is such a thing. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I find that on my path as well. You know, it just for me, I find that it part of my training, I suppose, is to learn to really detach and disconnect from all of the sense pleasures, including food and orgasm. I find that it helps with focus, and it helps me to really see the effect that these things have played on my life. You'd be amazed at how incredible of an influence pleasure has on our brains and our bodies. Our bodies are machines. Our bodies are machines. And these machines are constantly seeking pleasure and constantly trying to run from pain. And if you do the work of taking a moment and fasting from the pleasure, you start to really see the effect of it, right? The same thing as if you fast from sugar and you fast from salt, you start to see how deeply the craving goes. If you try to fast from sex and orgasm, you'll start to see how deeply the influence of that is. And it's not coming from you, it's coming from the body. You and what you actually are doesn't need sex. It creates with thought and creates with consciousness. The body needs sex because the body is an animal and it has programmed instructions to reproduce. That's the whole reason why we crave to have sex, because the body is an animal and part of its animal nature is to crave to reproduce. And now that craving manifests as the sex urge. And until that's mastered, then part of that animal still rules our consciousness. And this is what I mean when I say we have to come to the experience of consciousness, understanding that it is not matter. See, when consciousness thinks that it's matter, it believes that it must have the sex and it must have the food. But it's the matter that's having that desire. It's the body, it's the animal, not the consciousness, not the God aspect, if that's what you want to call it, not the spirit aspect, because the God aspect, the spirit, the consciousness, it doesn't have a body, doesn't have sex organs. It is not male or female. It is pure consciousness, and that's it. So it has no desire to have sex or to eat sugar and McDonald's. That's the body. So if we're not able to slice that and separate that, we stay confused. So that's why I say all of this study and practice and work will lead you to the same place. And that's eventually realizing that you are not this body, that you are not matter at all, that you're pure consciousness. But consciousness that believes that it's matter will have to suffer, because matter is in a constantly changing state. But consciousness is unchanging. Consciousness is the silent witness, the observer, and it never changes. And we have matter, which is always changing, divine masculine, divine feminine, right? Always changing, always the same. So when they think that they're each other, now we've got suffering, because consciousness is expecting reality to be the same like itself, yet matter is expecting consciousness to change like itself. Let me know if that makes sense or if it doesn't. Goodness gracious. Lanny Alderdice asks, so what do we do with our ego moving forward? Understand it, learn about it, study it, find out exactly what it is. And these books that I've selected for the book study in the next 5 months are going to do just that. So please stay tuned. Please get these books and please read them, because they're going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. This is nothing that I made up. This is the oldest information on the planet. This is the oldest information on the planet. But it just goes to show how powerful the pull of the animal is, that we still haven't mastered this or learned this. But that's okay, because 80 to 85% of the human species is supposed to be the animal. It's just how the pyramid works. I didn't make it up. That's just how nature does it. Yeah. Brother Ali 47 asks, do you think painting and sketching a live scene can be a form of meditation? Absolutely. Meditation is an inward process. It's not an external. So it doesn't matter really what the external process is. I highly suggest learning how to sit still and observing your thoughts and understanding what the difference between consciousness and matter is. I highly recommend practicing that. However, you can practice that at any given time. You can practice that while you're walking. You can practice that while you're making music. It's called mindfulness. It's called mindfulness. So yeah, that can be meditation. But I would highly recommend sitting still and analyzing in the laboratory of the mind. Because ultimately, like I said, this is all leading to the same place. But unless you do that work, you're not going to get to that place. Black Knight says, wow, deep, thanks. Awesome, awesome. Let's see. Lenny Alderdice also asks, so what do we do with all this sex energy? So, yeah, it's raw, uncolored energy. It's not necessarily sex energy. Technically, it's Kundalini energy. It's raw, uncolored energy, and it can be channeled and directed into anything. But check this out. You've got these chakras, right? You've got the root chakra, the sacral chakra, the Manipura, the Anahata, it goes on. Now that energy rises and goes up through each one of those. Now, the very first station that's going to hit is the sexual organs. So instantly, that's the first answer. I got an orgasm, right? That's the first answer. But if you restrain yourself, you practice restraint. If you don't just do that, you'll notice that that energy will continue to rise to the next chakra, which has to do with creation and community. If you withhold that, you'll notice that it begins to rise even more, and that gets to the heart center, right? And here's the thing: you continue withholding, burning that energy, and it will continue to rise up these chakra points, and it will attempt to manifest itself in different ways. But it takes restraint. It takes discipline and mastery over the body's impulses. So what do we do with all this sexual energy? Restraint, meditation, watch it, observe it, learn from it. And you'll find after a few days, weeks, months of not instantly giving into that sex urge, that energy will try to express itself in different ways. It'll come through your being in different ways. It'll express as magnetism. You'll have a different effect on people when you go out in public. You'll have a different effect on the people around you. Your mind will operate differently. I stayed away from this whole semen retention thing for a long time because, I didn't want to do that. But I've learned that, yeah, it was important for me. It was an important step for me. So if this is something that you want to see for yourself, if it's something important, I highly recommend practicing restraint. You don't have to go for months if you can't do that, but test yourself, push yourself the same way that you can fast from food and do a water fast, the same way that you can fast from sugar, the same way that you can eventually stop eating meat, right? Because I used to eat a lot of meat. Then I gradually stopped eating pork. Then I stopped eating beef. Then I stopped eating fish and chicken. And now I'm on a non-meat diet. You can go in steps. Right? And I tell you what, when all that pornography and twerking and shit isn't bouncing around in your head, you have more energy and awareness to focus on creation and things that are actually important. So I'd highly recommend at least try. You owe yourself at least to see what's possible. You have options. Nate Jones, peace, my friend. We Grow Natural asks, does our body betray us? Not if you understand it. Know thyself. If you learn about your body, you'll know what it's going to do, right? You know what your body's going to do. And the more that you understand about this, I call it an animal. The body is an animal that consciousness is attached to, right? When you think of the concept of, like, say, a cyborg or augmented reality, Pokemon Go, right? Where you got your phone and then you got real life, and you look through your phone and you see a Pokemon on real life. It's not in real life, but only on your phone. Likewise, consciousness is attached to this body, but this experience doesn't really exist. This experience is like Pokemon Go. But once consciousness is no longer looking at this phone, the Pokemon isn't here anymore. The body can betray you if you don't understand it. There's a lot of information written about how the mind works. The mind really does work in algorithms. Just like a computer. It really does. A plus B equals C. I've studied books that have mapped out thought process and how it works, how beliefs are formed, how complexes and phobias and fears and all these different things are formed. We're not logical creatures. We're emotional creatures, and the emotion has a lot more to do with it than logic. So understanding that part alone helps to save you a bit of suffering. Because we always see people and we say, what are they thinking? Why are they doing this? I just don't understand. You're trying to grasp it from a logical perspective. No one is a logical creature. We're animals. We're emotional animals with consciousness attached to it. So until we learn to separate those two, it will be confusing. Zohan asks, how do you follow your own path while you live with your parents who keep trying to pull you back to their beliefs? It's important to study. And understand also it's your path and not their path. You cannot change them. You cannot change their minds. You cannot teach them anything. Focus on yourself and don't try to fight them. You study for yourself. You don't need to tell them about it. You don't need to try to convert them. Keep it to yourself and don't rock the boat and make waves. Do what you can to get your information and build your plan to get out. But it's not going to do you any good to try to fight and debate and stand out and, because they pay the bills. They pay you the bills, they buy your food, you're under their jurisdiction. So you're going to have to be smart about it. They don't need to see anything. They don't need to hear about anything. When they talk to you about their religion and their beliefs, you can agree that they believe in it. All right. You can play along even if you can do that. But my suggestion is to not make unnecessary stress and struggle. You don't need to fight with them. Because ultimately, we're all after the same thing. You and your parents are ultimately after the same thing. You want to escape suffering and have more pleasure, right? Get to the very root of it. And when you see that you guys are actually on the same team, you just express it differently. Maybe you can move a little bit more efficiently. But don't try to fight. Don't try to battle. Wait until you're ready to move out and you're stable. Then you can have all the battle you want. But while you're still living with them and they're paying your bills, just be smart about it. Goodness gracious. So let's see. We Grow Natural asks, I'm new here, what books? Well, this is typically a book study group, so we will begin in January again. If you check on my page where it says community, there's a few posts, and I made a picture of the next 6 books that we're going to be going through. It'll be 1 book a month. And the very next book that we'll be getting into in a few days, starting in January, is going to be The Paths of Poverty and Nivriti. It's very important, and it's going to help to delineate the difference between living in the world and trying to be super spiritual and being a different part, being kind of secluded and isolated and being spiritual. Basically how you can be a part of the world and still practice this journey. Very important, and it's leading somewhere. I've actually picked all these because they're leading in a certain direction. So if you want to be a part of that, get that book. And also click the join button next to the subscribe button. By the way, if you guys are watching this video and you're enjoying this content, hit the like button because that helps. That helps YouTube know that this information is worth having on the internet. So if you haven't already, hit the like button. We got 78 people here. There should be 78 likes. Okay. Useless Familiar asks, in astrology, we have a north node and a south node. Can we use our north node as a purpose in this life? That can help. That can definitely help. It can help guide you in the right direction for sure. But my suggestion is to take some time to sit down and understand what influences are guiding you and pushing you and making you behave and think in a certain way. Understand the influences, because everyone is influenced. Everyone. And most people don't realize it. That's what makes it so easy to influence people. But if you're one who can sit down and analyze the sources of your influences and the sources of your trance, now you can begin to make wise decisions regarding the direction of your future. That's why I say trust your unconscious, because it knows. The conscious mind is busy being in a trance. You can use the north and south node to find your life purpose. You can also be still, find the influences of what's driving you, and decide whether or not you want to keep being driven in that direction. I mean, how many people, maybe you or someone you know, have grown up and their parents wanted them to be a certain thing, right? My parents wanted me to work in the health industry, to be a physician's assistant, or to work on computers. I didn't know any better, and I didn't have any other ideas, so I just went along with it. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. But I didn't realize that I had options. You have options, but you don't understand that you have options until you understand what's driving you, what's pushing you. Yes, sir, I can dig it. Society Eject says, yes, me and my wife been fasting from sex and finding more ways to connect. Believe it or not, conversation is more enjoyable. And I've noticed as well, when you don't burn that energy so quickly, you find that there are new ways to work that magnetism, right? There's something about building, what's the word? It's like building an intensity. What's the word? What is the word? Yeah. So there's other ways. The sexual charge isn't just released through actual physical sex. It can also flow through conversation and through dialogue and through thought and through body language. And sometimes when you build it up like that, it's a whole lot more fun. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. Connor Black, greetings. Connor Black says learning to detach from emotions is one of the most difficult things to do. Indeed, especially if you're a water sign. Court Singh, peace and greetings, bro. Heroin father, Trav, what did you do after high school? I went off to Egypt for 3 years and learned in the mystery school system. Not really. After high school, right away, I wanted to be a rock star. So I ran away from home and lived under the stairs, just like Harry Potter, because I had a friend who had his own place, and they didn't have any rooms, but they had this closet under the stairs. So I was like, look, anything. I just want to be free from my parents so I don't have to go to college and I can be a rock star. And, I had my band and we performed, and, we had a little mini tour. We were doing pretty good. That's what I did immediately after high school. Also, I took a ton of shrooms. Whoa. But yeah, that's what I did right after high school. What are you going to do right after high school? If I could go back and influence myself, which I did, I told myself during a trip that to treat everyone as if you treat yourself, because essentially we're all the same entity. I told myself that in 2004. But as far as advice for life, I would have told myself back then to learn a skill, to master a skill, to study some kind of skill, because that's super important. Learn a skill. You got time. You're young. Find out how you can serve the human race, how you can give back to the world. That's going to be one way to really get ahead in life, because you can learn as many skills as you can handle. The more that you understand, not only the more money can you make, but you'll start to connect the dots. When you start mastering skills, you start to see how similar things are in the world, right? Just from me learning music and video editing and animation and computer information technology and learning about psychology and learning about the occult, learning about all these different things, I see so many connections now. I see so many connections. Like, things aren't really as different as we believe they are. Things are very, very similar. And if you, I found that almost like the Kabbalah is like this master key that connects everything to everything. But in order to really get there, you've got to learn a skill and then learn another skill. And when you keep learning these skills, like I said, you can see behind the lines. So don't worry about, oh, well, what if I don't want to do it in 10 years? Don't worry about that. Pick something that excites you and master it. Then pick something else that excites you and master it. Trust me, that's what I would have told myself in high school. No matter what it is, just pick something. You know what I'm saying? Pick a skill and master it. Mo B, good to see you, as always. Ness Quickable asks, are willpower and desire actually forces themselves as described by William Walker Atkinson? Absolutely. But then again, they are expressions of matter. So they're categorized up under matter. There's only two forces in the universe: divine masculine and divine feminine, consciousness and matter. Matter is like this enclosed system. It's like this enclosed egg, and it's isolated. And within it is the shifting states of solid, liquid, gas, ether, and the combinations of those different elements create different drives, like aggression or expansion and love and beauty and intelligence and all these different expressions, but they're all contained within matter. They're all contained within matter. Reality is outside of that. Yeah. Yeah. LOMG TV says I rap, so I go and make another hit the studio in the next room. That's another thing. Like when you do practice discipline over the sexual energy, you can easily convert it into creative energy. Easily. Most people aren't doing that. That's one secret to making better art. Marwa Fakir asks, is the female sexual energy the same as the male's? It is. It, of course, vibrates a little bit differently, but essentially it is. It's the same source energy. But like I mentioned, it's almost like we are all gloves, but the same hand is within those gloves. It expresses a little bit differently, but it's the same. Has to express differently. The parts are different, but it's the same type of energy. Useless Familiar says, I will say, since getting more spiritual, I fasted off weed and alcohol. I don't even crave it anymore. Awesome. Awesome. Keep it up. Keep it up, because what's happening is you're raising your vibration. And I know that sounds corny, but that's what you're doing. You're raising your frequency, and the frequency is how frequently you're doing a thing. You're raising the quality and quantity of consciousness that you're dealing with. And remember, I've said many times in this very speech, we've got two essences, consciousness and matter. Now, when you're doing things like fasting from orgasm, fasting from weed and alcohol, and all the things that bring us these pleasures that are intended to escape from pain, it's not that they're pleasurable. That's not the problem. The problem is that we're using these pleasures to escape from our pain and to distract us. When you start fasting from that, what you're literally doing is you're pulling consciousness out of matter. So like I said, you're increasing the quality and the quantity of consciousness. You're expanding, you're evolving, you're growing. Now, as I said before, consciousness doesn't change. It is a stagnant thing. But in your experience, when you begin to pull away from those vices and those distractions, what you're pulling away is you're pulling the consciousness out of matter. That's why you're raising in frequency. That's why it's so important to do these things. It's not that sex is bad. Sex is bad. Nothing's bad, right? Nothing is bad, but it's always the intent behind why you do it. There, so many people smoke every day, all day, right? And there's nothing like wrong with marijuana, but it's the intention. Usually that's a trauma response. Usually people are doing that because they're running away from trauma. Tell me I'm wrong. Absolutely. Let's see. MC, greetings.
What's good?
Uh-oh, I need to turn my volume up because now I can't hear you.
Amen.
Okay, say something again.
What's up? What's up?
Awesome, awesome. How's it going?
Pretty well. I finally like got in a schedule for the meditations for the inner light activation system. And so I do pretty much kaya strength and like the meditations besides chakra shooting. I do that once a week, but I go to work my way to etheric catalysis. And I kind of combine, like when you first started Dharan Darshan, Oh, when we were on Kaya Strengthen, you just said, hey, stare at a symbol. So I've kind of did the Tawa scrying and Kaya Strengthen at the same time, just to kind of kill two birds with one stone. And the Tawa Shooty etheric catalysis, and then later in the evening is when I'll do Body of Light.
Yeah.
I've had this like kind of a weird distraction maybe for the past 3 weeks, to where if I try to sit down and focus, like I get this weird kind of like spinning sensation. Not me spinning, but it's like, I guess, energy spinning. And then a lot of times, like I can quote unquote overcome it, but it's like really distracting. So I'm like trying to devise a way to counteract that.
Does it stop you from progressing?
It gets difficult, I will say.
Do you know in what way it gets difficult?
Like if because I'm largely visual, and so when I'm trying to imagine something, it kind of interferes with that. And it's a sensation as well. It's not just a visual. I think the sensation happens beforehand. Now that I think about it, but it kind of takes my focus away from what if I'm trying to pay attention to something. It kind of just occupies me.
Have you been able to pinpoint where it happens?
Not exactly. Like when I've tried, it kind of just moved. I think it's like, I think whatever my mind switches and says, all right, time to focus, that's when it kind of pops up. But I mean, it's not too bad. I noticed like with chakra shooty, it went away completely for like 1 or 2 days. I think it's just like the degree of focus I'm applying to something. And it's kind of, I guess, what I could quantify as my personal barrier of Laya.
Yeah. The concept of the gatekeeper came to mind, which isn't always a bad thing.
Right.
And in this case, I don't think it's a bad thing.
I'm always doing it, reading Michael Ford, and I realized this morning, I was like, yo, he really, like what I said about chaos magic, like how you understand systems and then make your own.
Mm-hmm.
Like all he really did was just understand the basis of everything, and then like come out with a different theme each year on that same exact thing.
Yeah. Recent videos about mantras and
I told you after what's it called? I think it was Tower Shooty. That's when he was like, all right, bro, I gotta switch. Because I found in I think Liber HVHI is basically like Tower Shooty, except like his own version in there.
I haven't dug back much into his stuff since I got into Vedic.
Some of it goes in tandem. Like I see if there's something I can't conceptualize in the Vedic practice wise, then like I just go to him, and something's always in there. It just add his own words, Lilith, Leviathan, and Samael, but
Yeah.
he's really talking about Kundalini.
I mean, in some places, you don't even change the words.
YouTube chat.
Reading the comments currently. Tian Pomeroy says, I wish I could get some shrooms in the UK. You have options. Oh,
I feel like they probably, 'cause I know in mainland Europe, they're kind of, or really easy to get. I'm sure somebody's in there funneling them through.
Boof Zip. Nice name. Greetings. LOMG TV says we need to discipline. They say the city girl's up 1,000. LOL. Rather get back to my first love and childlike essence and chase self. Honestly, you know, as long as the passion is directed inwardly, how can you lose? You really can't lose. It's another thing that I learned dealing with the whole fasting from different pleasures.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that was really profound for me, and I've said it before, is when I first started to fast and not really eat so much sugar and soda and like cut all that out. What I noticed was that I have different cravings, and I see it now. There are times when my body wants sugar, when it wants salt, and I'm able to sit down and distinguish what it feels like when my body wants sugar and when my body wants salt. But you don't know that unless you start to really refine what's going on, refining the awareness of your body. And you do that by fasting from different things. I've learned that when you turn your aspirations within, you really start to see how much of an influence nonsense has on your daily behavior.
Yeah, that's been been trying to like program mudras for one for like meditative consciousness and then another one for trance. But then I started to realize like what gets me into trance is just a bunch of nothing. Like my thoughts will probably be all over the place. So I'm learning to distill like the actual trance state from those random thoughts. It's starting to sound different too. Like whenever it's like a negative thought,
Mm-hmm.
like it has a little, I don't know what the tone would be considered, but like it doesn't even seem childish, or it seems spiteful all the time.
Yes. I wonder if you've been able to figure out whose voice that is yet.
I've known for a while.
Okay.
I don't know, but
that was pretty eye-opening when I started to realize that those voices belonged to somebody. They weren't just negative thoughts. And again, you don't notice that until you start to refine your awareness of yourself. You just think you're just having negative self-talk. No, that's somebody's words are echoing. Somebody put them there a long time ago. And it doesn't stop because you get older.
And what I've noticed is like that's people's like, I guess, a form of reincarnation. Like, that truly those words and that those mannerisms could have came from somebody that lived in the damn 1600s. And it's never stopped. It just, from spawn to spawn to spawn to spawn.
Yeah. Like that meme, you seen the meme that's going around where it's got like this old man and he's like saying something really negative and then it goes on and it's like, I'm breaking the chain and like, I love you,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, have you heard the concept that potentially there are some forms of life that are actually data, like memes that are alive?
I've heard that in the occult sense, but not in like a scientific setting.
I wish I could remember the article I read, but they posed a theory that potentially there's extraterrestrial life that are actually a collection of words and language and ideas, and they replicate, like memes.
Mm-hmm. And I did it once. I don't know why I stopped, but in Introduction to Chaos Magic, it's like he talks about deifying a specific quality. But what if you get a pattern of thought, deify that, and then work with that, work with or exercise that the entity that you just personified.
That reminds me, you were talking in the chat about these archetypes and these emotions. And I was reading this Ladder of Lights book, and he pretty much was saying exactly what you said. As far as, we've got the human level, and on that next level, it's removed from emotion or personalized emotion, right? Because there's no memory and no ego, but there's like collections of emotions that our life forms, and we literally just they tap into us. We're not tapping into them. If I can find it, it'd probably explain it a lot better than what I just said, because obviously we know that, but the way that he put it was instantly, I was like, wow, you literally just typed that not long ago.
Those are like the true archons right there. It's not spooky, I control the weather. It's like there's only an archon. Probably everyone has their own personal one for their family.
Mm-hmm.
You have like the image of you, your natal chart counts as an archon. Then all your emotions, but those are it's non-exclusive.
I'm not sure if this is it, but I'm just gonna read this part here. I like this book because the way that he's breaking down the Sephiroth is that he's explaining them from the four worlds. So he's talking about Malkuth from Asaya, Yetzirah, Bria, Atziluth. Then he talks about Yesod from Boom, 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 Boom. That's really cool. Never seen that before. Because I just said before, like, oh, well, nobody really breaks down the four worlds. And then the next book I get, he's breaking down the four worlds. And when he does that, he's breaking it down from the angelic level, the archangelic level, the God name level, the human level. But anyways, in this portion, he was talking about Chesed and the archangels that reside there in the Yetziratic plane. No, that's the angel order. They're called the Chasmalim. And it's my belief that when I went on my recent trip, that is the place that I went. And it was distinctly different, because usually I only get communication with one entity at a time. But this was clearly a group of entities, and they were very happy and positive and just full of joy and bliss. But when I read this, it was like, holy shit, this sounds exactly what I experienced. But that being said, they are the managers of a specific type of emotion. All of the angelic realm so far that I'm seeing here is in control of specific emotions. And when you tap into that emotion, you're tapping into their realm. But just this piece right here. And again, they're called the Chasmalim. When a human being approaches the best in themselves, we say they're in a good humor, meaning that they have reached a state of joviality in which they're capable of behaving like Jove, which is the Romanized form of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, the highest god. Again, the element of laughter associated with the divinity at the top level. The Chasmalim are the comedians and the drama of existence, making it all very much worthwhile. It will be noticed that all the Sephiroth, except the supernals, the top three, are connected with some form of human emotion or feeling, and it is deeply significant that humor is above all the others. We always link heaven and happiness together in our minds, yet it is an odd fact that religion makes so many people miserable or gloomy. The tree pattern makes it perfectly clear that the nearer to divinity, the more delighted humanity should become. Sad, unhappy, Uncharitable people are far from the top of the tree, whatever they profess, and they need the chasmalim to make them of good cheer. No one can rise to divine heights without their aid, and they hold the keys to lead us safely across the abyss. Prayers for a happy death are often put up. A happy release is a euphemism for death from painful conditions, and a wish to die laughing is not uncommon. There's a great mystical truth in these homely phrases. I found some pretty interesting stuff there. That so Chesed is right before the three supernals. That's the blue sphere. That's the Jupiter sphere.
Jupiter.
Right before Doth, and the particular emotion that that group of angels control in the Yetziratic realm is of laughter, joy, happiness, bliss. Not necessarily bliss, but just like joy. I would say joy probably. And they're saying that that's above the rest of the emotions, and that's needed to cross the abyss. So all these people out here being dead serious, stiff and rigid, and even just in general unhappy, that's far away from source energy.
Yeah. And it was being described as jovial. It reminded me of like, because that's a general description of Guru, the planet.
That's right. Laughing Buddha.
Yeah. And even like in I think it's maybe Tony Robbins' chart.
Well, he's not
Oh
necessarily
boy.
that one, but yeah.
I think in Tony Robbins' like chart of like the emotions or those, you know, the quantitative points, that joy is like the one right before enlightenment.
Hmm.
It's the last, like you said, it's right before the supernal, so that's really the last archetype that you see before you get to a realm like where form, you know, starts becoming more and more abstract.
Man.
I'm glad that you said it was a group, or realized it was a group, because I think that side of the, I mean, all, you know, all trees have their groups of angels and legions and whatnot, but that side of the tree symbolically focuses on the multitude, I've noticed, where you know, you have things like the ascended masters in the Jupiter sphere. You have archetypes in Netzach, and then recently in one of the path workings, there's the when it comes to Chokmah, that's like it was like the Knights of the Round Table, so like the most pristine of the pristine, like the masters of the masters.
Yeah.
And then like a lot on the left seems more in solitude, odd. It's like the image of the magician, and you know, doing a ritual by himself. Then you have Gebro, which is either the lone person being tried or the kind of this lone warrior archetype. Then you get to Bina, and it's like the kind of the cold and husky. Like the best I could describe it is just like an empty, like cave almost. It's not morbid per se, but it's, you know, it's a container, but there's nothing really populating it.
Gate of death.
Mhm.
Also, relation to, Star Wars with the Sith, they're usually pretty not solo. They got the rule of two, but it's a stark contrast from the Jedi, which is communal, and there's always a whole group of them. Left hand, right hand path. Uh-oh. Egregores, data forms. Alchemy gold, peace, peace. Bandana, Mrityur Mokshiyam Amrita.
Be back in a quick sec.
Hmm?
I'm gonna be back in a quick sec.
Okay. Om Trambakam. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty dang cool. Pretty dang cool. I was wanting to specifically tell him about that because I just read it. And then he pops on and I had a chance to tell him. Nice. So yeah, it's so important to approach these subjects as if you are a student. So many people that I've talked to, well, not so many people, but there's a handful of people that have this attitude as if they know everything already about the tree of life. And I can see that really being something that causes a blockage. I'm approaching this material as if I don't know, and it's all new to me because it is. I only scratched the surface, and really anyone only scratches the surface. Kabbalah is extremely deep, extremely deep. It literally takes years and years and years to understand fully, or I should say comprehend fully what's going on here. So I get excited to see a new perspective. Alora Cohen, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you guys?
Fabulous.
Cool. I just got finished recording in an actual recording studio the Tatwa meditations for each of the elements. So that's going to be up on my channel pretty soon once we edit them.
Really?
Yeah, it's getting professional now.
That's cool. That's cool. So
Yeah.
each one of the Tatwa meditations.
Yeah. So like, earth, air, water, fire, ether, all those. And then there's going to be more to come too. Especially as we get into like Kabbalah studies and stuff, which by the way, I have to give props to that book that you started reading, because I think for some reason, like before it didn't really click, but that perspective is like really working with my learning style. And so it like I got a lot of really good information and was able to connect a lot of dots because of that book that you started sharing. So thank you for posting that. That was like super wicked.
Awesome. That's good to hear. I'm really enjoying this book. I hope you do too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of correlations between that and the Agora books. And just kind of what they're saying. And it makes me realize too that like the Kabbalah isn't actually a manual, but like as to why you would practice it too, in a sense of you're learning how to connect to what we call deities or anything like that. Like you're starting to step into that awareness of what you are and what's around you, so you're able to better utilize the space that's around you, right? Like the things that are constantly like vibrating that you may not be aware of. So it's a really awesome perspective on how you can actually use the Kabbalah in your daily rituals or practices or whatever. So yeah, that it's definitely like clicking a lot now. It's really, really cool.
Just imagine how much more you're going to get as we progress through this year. I'm excited about what I'm about to find out.
Yeah, straight up. We're going to be, oh my God, on a whole other level. Like even today, as I was recording the meditations, right? I started like channeling some of that energy that was being like described in the first 2 chapters of that book, like I was becoming aware of what other frequencies were playing a part as my words were being spoken. And so I was able to like just kind of become aware of how that manifests when we present or project a certain emotion or an idea or a concept, especially when we're not trying to adhere to a particular audience, but just simply connecting into the energy of whatever it is that we're trying to connect to. So I'm like so excited about these studies coming up. Like, I think it's just going to bring everyone to a next level.
Yes. I'm agreeing with that 1,000,000%. Well, that's cool that you're able to connect it between working with the elements and the Kabbalah stuff, because it's the same technology, just different facets of it. So that's cool that you're already using it.
Yeah, it's a trip. Like, it definitely comes in layers, but like as I was saying certain words, or like I was understanding why they repeat certain concepts, because it helps you like for example, in the meditations for like the water tattwa, right? There's a repetition of the word of the crescent moon, and it implies that you keep your focus on that area. It keeps your focus there. So that repetition becomes a power source in its own for you to tap into. So like just things like that, like that just kind of play out. And then when you take it back to your own regular speech patterns, what words do you happen to project and repeat often that portrays a certain emotion or a frequency that portrays the context of what, or the emotional context of what you're trying to say? Like how oftentimes do we repeat certain words in order to get our point across? And what those words are like can surprise you, when you become more aware of that stuff. So and then it's like, okay, what levels am I actually tapping into then? And can I become aware of the actual vibrational frequency that is happening when I say these words? And that's where the Kabbalah comes in, like full on, because then you can be aware of these other dimensions that are playing a part at the same time of whatever it is you're playing, whatever you're manifesting in that moment.
Hot stuff. Christy D, mi amor, peace. Alex Cuckoo, peace, my friend. Sister Divine, peace. Alora, Timon says, Alora, I still use your Tattwa shooting meditation in your channel. Excellent and effective.
Yo, you are rad. Thank you. I appreciate it. I do too. Like I make them, like honestly, I make them for myself because I'm a very audio visual learner. And so for me, guided meditations like just super help me connect. So I'm glad that other people are also getting value from that. Cause yeah, like to the other audio visual learners, like it's nice to have those steps kind of laid out for you so you can just kind of go with it. So I'm glad that you're getting a benefit from it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to revamping the channel. It's going to be super rad, y'all. Super rad.
Super rad. Sankofa Sound asks, how does the Tree of Life and Tantrism work for you? Is it more left, right, or middle in comparison? I really strive to stay as neutral as possible, just to keep it real. I only even use the terms left hand or right hand just in conversation to make a point. But when it comes to my personal journey and work, I don't think about that. I don't think about left, right, or middle. I mean, I guess it would be middle if you had to put it that way, because I try to keep it as neutral as possible. I'm just more interested in understanding what I'm doing and how it's working and how to replicate it and how to make it move me from where I am to where I'm trying to go. Yeah, so I guess middle would be the answer if I had to categorize it. Because from what I see, there's benefits on both sides, all sides, drawbacks on all sides.
I feel you on that. Since our conversation about the categorization of things, I've like been really having to reanalyze like how I categorize the movement of energy and what effect that creates. And if we continue to try and separate it into certain compartments, which we already do as manifest beings, right? Because when it comes down, it comes as the pure energy. Then you as the form begin to separate it and to categorize it so then it can work in a different way. So like this pure energy now will be my hunger. This pure energy will now become my breath, whatever. We're already categorizing it. So I think the more what has really hit me is like the more we try to make it fit into a certain category, the less it's going to fit in it. Because that's not, because it can't really be fit. It can't really be fit into a category. Like we do it as a subconscious thing because that's what helps us manifest in this realm. And so we're constantly categorizing and attaching things to this pure energy. But what I'm realizing is that it's important not to try to fit things into a certain compartment, not to compartmentalize it, you know, because then you end up limiting yourself in your own practice and what you can do.
You end up limiting your options.
Yeah.
You know, in this book, Ladder of Lights, I'm really enjoying what he's saying about angels in the angelic realm. He says that they're less like bodiless babies with wings and more like guided missiles. And from what I understand about guided missiles, is that they have a destination that they're headed towards before they're even launched. Sometimes before they're loaded, they have a destination that they're headed towards already. But by the time they hit, for the people on the receiving end of that long, heavy missile, it's a surprise. And maybe they try to manage and deal with it at the time of impact, but sometimes things are already on its way and we don't realize it.
Yeah, and it's like in that book they mentioned like the Archangel Michael, right? Like how many times have you heard people be like, "Oh, I call Archangel Michael to protect me," or "Oh, he's the homie over here who's blah blah blah," and they portray like this certain like angelic fairy dude, right? And he's all like, you know, but he's the protector, blah blah blah. And so I had like a really negative connotation when it came to that because I was like, what the fuck? Like I ain't, you know, I'm not about Michael, you know. But that book, but you know, when they describe the angels in the way that they did, which is very much how the Aghoris kind of describe deities, where they are like those missiles of energy, you realize that Archangel Michael is the element of fire, you know, cannot be compartmentalized into a form. It can't, you know, it's a tatwa.
Absolutely. The best we can do is to help clean up our categorization system. That's the best we can do, is help clean up what and how we understand it, because these essences and forces are so vast and so incomprehensibly powerful and have so much dominion over every aspect of our lives that we can't even comprehend it. It must be left up to our unconscious mind. But it's good to learn as much as we can. But these things, they're being managed by an operating system that you're going to need a couple of lifetimes to understand how to work it.
Yeah, for sure. And like when we categorize, we got to remember too that that's us assigning a duty to this energy.
Mhm.
So we got to clean up our categorization. So then however we want this energy to manifest in this realm for us, we can have a more awareness of it. We can have more of an idea of where we want to direct the missile, sorry, not necessarily, just assign it to one function when it obviously doesn't function for just that one thing.
And that's kind of what I mean. The conscious mind is actually the one that's receiving the missile, not the one sending it. But we think that we're sending it. That's where we get so mixed up and confused, because we think we're the one sending the missiles. We're receiving it. The conscious mind receives from the subconscious.
Y'all bring up angels. Working on a piece last night. I'm trying to finish up today.
Slow down.
What is it?
It's like a specific scene out the Quran, actually, but it's like I draw like the angels around.
Rad, dude.
Nice. What's good, Night Owl? What's good, Al Dickey? Peace, Broham. Peace, broski. I love it. I wish I could share everything, but I can't because I have my own rules that I choose not to share everything. But the unconscious mind has everything you need already. We like to study and we like to learn and get these books, and that's great. But understand that's not the salvation. That's just to help you understand a bit more. But your unconscious mind is, when we study the Kabbalah and we study the relationships and the networks and the branches of the tree, we're learning about how the unconscious mind works. It's already working. You don't have to figure out this tree to learn how to do it. It's already happening. So that's why I say trust your unconscious mind, because you're already doing this. What happens is that your conscious mind is in a position of being an antagonist. It's blocking the progress. So when I say that your unconscious mind is the one sending these missiles, the conscious mind is standing up in the way. Hey, no, let's send it over here instead. Boom, and you get hit, right? And you wonder why, oh, it's not working and this is a scam. And, you get upset trying to place blame, but not realizing that maybe, just maybe, you're standing in your own way.
Oh, Sean's angry with me.
Oh, yeah, not that. How much do I have to pay to make Oshun forgive me? No. It doesn't matter what we call these entities.
I was just going to say that, like the only time that I've read where like things are actually mad at you or deities are actually mad at you are because you run away in fear. It's when you have a fear of your potential that bad things can happen. So
look at that. The categorization system of I'm in fear and now bad things are happening to me. That's how you have labeled your reality. So when that energy rises up, because remember we talked about the sexual energy, and when you don't fap, the energy goes up and it hits these different chakra points and it expresses itself at the different points. So if you labeled your experience, I'm in fear and bad things are happening, as that energy rises, it's going to come oozing out as, yep, you're in fear. Yep, bad things are happening. You're doing it. Nobody put a curse on you. You're not being under psychic attack. You're doing it.
Right. You're again directing, you're getting in the way of how you're categorizing that energy. So that energy is just going to move in whichever way you're categorizing it.
Yes. The subconscious mind is so fair that she gives you what you want. Prakriti is so fair that she gives you what you want.
That's some shit, right? Like you have to learn how to control your not control yourself, but you got to learn about yourself to better serve yourself.
If that's what you want. And you know, I've met some people who love pain and stuff, but that's how they got it categorized. But I want to assume that everyone here wants a little bit more harmony in their life. Because if you want to go to the next level, then harmony is a necessity.
Yeah, and it starts out with just like basics, right? Like I've just been like, I recently, since our last conversation, you know, that self-fulfilling shit that like fucked with me. And I was like, where am I directing myself to go? And so I just brought it back to like step one. Okay, let's meditate on happiness. Let's cultivate happiness, you know, as an everyday thing, and then go from there. Like sometimes you gotta just take it back to step one to be able to really see where you're at and what you actually need within the moment.
Yes.
Yeah, and like kind of, I mean, I didn't invent it, but like with NLP, how once you truly understand how words work, you could really have that word define anything. Because before, like I would hear, because happiness is subjective, so Alora said happiness, and then but beforehand I would have been like, you know, what the hell does that mean? It's, you know, social media, blah blah blah. But now I've put my own meaning and spin on it, so where I like when I hear that now, that's just like confirmation. So even if you don't agree with the message, you could flip it entirely to serve you personally when you hear it.
Yes. And I love that. I love that. You know what? I love rapport with people because why not? Why not just be good with folks? I don't need to be at war with anybody. If somebody has a disagreement with me, I'm not lying if we can meet on some level. I mean, words are so malleable and plastic that I mean, I can make it work. I don't need any stress in my life. Let's make it work. Underneath your words, though, you're meaning something. You're looking for something. And if I could identify that, then I guess it doesn't really matter what you believe. We can all win. At least that's how I look at it.
I think depending if they're open to it, because a lot of people are unaware of their true meaning or of what they're looking for, which is why we have projections, right? Which is why, like, you know, for me, a big thing that I have that has been a really big learning lesson has not been holding grudges against people. Really recognizing that when someone lashes out at you, it's because they are lashing out at themselves, like literally, like they need for someone to act in a way, like say someone flirts with your partner, right? Well, they're acting out in that way because they feel like they need love and that they can't get it on their own. Like they are so needy and seeking that out. You know, there's a need that's always being portrayed. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are unaware of that, and they can act out maliciously as like a coping mechanism for them, you know? So it's one thing to identify it, but it's another thing also to not take it personally, to like recognize that doesn't have to live rent free in your brain. Like as Hood Mystic put it yesterday, like, he had like a rad post on that. Holding grudges is like allowing someone to live rent free in your mind.
Yeah.
You know, because you're taking their projection and you're taking it personally onto you.
Right. Attachment. So, there's a tendency to attach and to cling. Attachment makes suffering. Man, right. I can't hold grudges against nobody anymore because I understand people are doing things because they're in their own world of how they interpret the world, their own perceptions. Nothing to do with me. You can't be mad at me. You don't even know me.
Right. And also, like, why am I choosing to hold this grudge? Were my expectations of you similar to my expectations of me? And therefore, I'm just being really hard on myself by taking what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, you can't hold expectations upon others except for who others are going to be like. you know, or what they're going to be like. You can't place them on some type of pedestal that you're making up in your mind for yourself.
You did it.
Right.
Once again, you labeled it that way. Once again, your janky system. And now you're getting mad because your employees weren't happy. And they did what unhappy employees do, which is piss poor performance.
Yeah. And again, and then it goes back to that attachment, right? What's my attachment to this person? What do I need from them? What am I constantly looking for them? What type of affirmation am I thinking that they're going to satisfy?
Right.
That I can't satisfy myself.
In our personal relationships, we use people to symbolize an emotion that's triggered within us. Some people don't want to hear that. That might sound selfish. Oh, I don't use anyone. You, in your personal relationships, you use people to trigger a specific archetype or emotion within you. That's how relationships work. So
right. Go ahead.
Yeah, like with what you just said, what does this person represent to you? What are they triggering within you? What do they make you feel? Identify that. And then identify why you feel that you need it. Because it's not always a bad thing, but it is good to understand yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think of, like, for example, one way we use people, I think we all do, is because there is a agreement. There's a mutual unspoken agreement. Well, now spoken now, I guess, but between humans on the concept of love and loving someone. I love someone because you are a channel to me of love, of what love is. I feel that energy coming from you. We have an agreement that is a perception that we have of one another. So when I'm in love with you, I am recognizing and affirming that the energy coming through you is a channel of love for me, which isn't wrong. There is no good or bad, right? But that energy cannot be categorized as one function, right? Like it is limitless. So there is also a subconscious attachment or expectation we have due to our own definitions of what love is that we hold each other responsible to. And that's where shit gets fucked up, because now I'm expecting you to be my concept of what love is. And right. You need to express it in every way that I conceive of it.
Not even understanding that you're not feeling love from this person. This person is triggering you to bring that love out of yourself. No one makes us feel anything. But that's the thing, we always project it. I'm in love with her. She makes me feel. No, you're feeling that. When you have the pleasure, you're feeling the pleasure. You can't make someone else feel it.
That's not your. You can't own that emotion. You can't own any emotion, and so you get. So where you get is what we would call, I guess, a miscommunication on the astral realm. Right? Like you get a little bit of a mix up there because you got these two different directions colliding.
Well, it would be a mix up on the material realm, because those emotions, they're being channeled through, it's happening, but the labeling system is fucked up. By the time it hits Malkuth, it's all mixed up. Like what Shango said, labeling system like a Honda with a Mercedes emblem on the front. Peace, Shango. Yeah. Peace, Veronica. Night Owl says, people think I'm a people pleaser or fake because of how well I find rapport with people. They just don't realize I'm freakishly obsessed with the harmony. Right?
I agree with that. What you said reminds me of, I went on a trip a few years ago. My grandparents are looking for a house in this country, and all the houses they could possibly look at were all about a small country. And one of the persons showing in the house said, oh yeah, a lot of people started moving over here because of Trump. Then my grandma turns to me and says, see what Trump made these people do? And I was confused. I was like, he didn't do anything. Like, so these people have spent probably $1 million leaving, sacrificing commodity and whatnot
Right.
because of a symbol.
Because of a symbol. Right. The power of the symbol. It's ridiculous, but at the same time, I look at that with awe and respect, because that is an art and a science that I'm mastering, right? I respect that shit. That's the game. I got to learn that.
And that's just one part of it. Like, you attach all other types of synchronicities that happen with this symbol, and you have a full-on paradigm shift. Like, you attach the timing too. So you attach numbers to the symbol. You know, you attach certain seasons with this symbol. You know, like, you build up that environment, and the environment is full of attachments, full of different groups of energy being categorized. And then you use them in a way that creates an actual different universe, a mini universe within the universe, where everyone functions on this agreement. You know, I have this agreement that politics are going to affect my life, even down to how I feed myself.
Mm.
And we're all living under that paradigm in that universe that doesn't exist outside of its own little microcosm. You know, it's like more than the symbol. It's when you attach things, but the symbol itself is a root. It's an anchoring. It's something that we can always keep our focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you're describing the very essence of what we call mimetic magic. And I'm sure it's had different names in the past and in the present, but I like to call it mimetic magic because it's cool. That's what's happening. That's what that symbol itself, which really doesn't mean anything other than what you know about it, right? Some people are deeply immersed in the lore of the symbol. When I see Trump, I just see this rich white dude with hair, and he talks kind of funny. Like, that's all I feel and get from that. But there's other people who have this whole thing about it, and their emotions are pulled and shit. They go into a trance when they hear his name. That's powerful. That's powerful.
That is power.
That's power. They go into a trance when they hear this man's name.
Yeah.
They're willing to spend hard-earned money to move across the country. When they
Move out of it, actually.
Move
you
out.
Get citizenship. I don't even think that country allows dual citizenship. But you had to revoke your citizenship, get new citizenship, sacrifice commodity like water per se, like we're running water, spend millions of dollars buying the place. Because of that, you just saw a guy on TV.
You never met him. You never met him in. For all you know, he could be digital animation. Oh my God.
Your hologram.
Come on, folks. This is where we live.
A hologram.
This man was created in the same setting as the Tupac one. He was a test subject, and they said, let's just put him on TV, see what happens.
All we know, that could be the truth. We don't know. I never seen Obama in person. I seen Dick Cheney. I think he was kind of far away, but
Joe Biden knew parts of my family because he came from Delaware too.
Byron.
Biden.
President
Biden. President Biden.
Oh, that's so funny.
And how did he win the election? They sold a symbol.
Yeah.
Everyone sells a symbol. They didn't even bother to try and keep up with it. They didn't even bother to try and make it seem like they were working on it afterwards.
That's not necessary. All that's necessary is we get your initial, belief investment. I think
Right.
they
That's
said.
that's a term right there, bro.
Hmm.
Initial belief investment.
Hmm.
You come work for a company, said, you know, who cares about the sales? Who cares about, you know, the marketing, your hits, whatever. It's that initial belief investment.
I seen
Copywriter.
a study about the presidential slogans and whatnot, and all the presidents who won, their slogans were future based, and all the ones who lost, their slogans were in the present. There's something to that. Everybody wants to change their situation. They don't want a better situation. They want a new situation. We're always chasing the new shiny thing. And the results prove that.
Replacing mind controlled tap water with metaverse.
Yeah.
Took a whole, that took a month. You just knocked out a 30-year livelihood of someone in a month. Just imagine what you could do with like any other belief people have. You could really knock out something like that, something long running as that in a single month. Just because. Didn't even need to exist.
Doesn't even need to exist. But you know, and we're this now we're getting into stuff about these higher planes, right? Because on the higher realms, some of these things don't physically exist. There's some things that only exist on the highest planes, yet they still have a very profound effect on the things that do exist on the physical. For example, we talked about the angelic realm, and their realm is the realm of different emotions. The chasmalim don't exist on the physical plane, yet they're required to be in contact with if you want to transcend, according to Ladder of Lights, of course.
Means that there's a conspiracy sphere somewhere out there. Lucky probably doth.
Yeah, getting lost in too much data, too much knowledge.
Knowledge without application. And or application without knowledge.
Hold on. You said Doth is like education without knowledge?
That's one side of it.
That's like a fundamental root of our whole system in North America. I can't speak on behalf of anywhere else, but so are we then? We're not living in Doth, right? Because Doth is still a higher state. Well, we are, but we're in Malkuth. But the effects of Doth.
Flip off.
Uh-oh.
Extremes.
Excess.
Either, or I think it was Charvet's book where Americans, like, if they were to say something's normal, they would describe it in terms of extremes. Whereas in Canada, they would describe it like pretty accurately. If someone doesn't like the taste of something, or it's like, oh, it's completely nasty, it's disgusting, they probably go off on it. Canada, like, yeah, I didn't like it. It's a little sour.
Even down to kids, like children do that. It's like we learned that at such a young age.
Yeah, you ever see like a kid fall and then they look at you to see kind of what they should do next? Like,
I've seen adults do that. I seen, somebody posted a video on Instagram where this dude was like, I don't know, these two dudes are talking shit. And this dude just like slapped him and he didn't expect it. He got hit so hard. The first, like, it's just in slow motion. I'm watching this. The first thing he did was look at his homie. Then he looked back to respond. Like he was knocked back into he needed that support to continue.
Man, Doctor Strange slapped him.
Wow. He looked at his friend and then looked back. What made it so funny was he was in the middle of saying, "You ain't gonna put your hands up." But anyways, yeah, that some things don't change from even kids. And that even comes from our animal nature. Like as if you ever have dogs and stuff, it looks to its pack leader before it makes certain kinds of decisions, like to eat first or to walk into a room or different things like that. It's very primal.
The,
Yeah.
there's
Oh,
a
go
dude
ahead,
on
Micah.
YouTube. He has like a lot of old films, filmmaker for years. And he went out to the Midwest and there's a pig farmer. And he literally taught his pigs to like, they will be right in front of, you know how they eat, they just go at it. He taught them to stay and be disciplined as he's saying a prayer. And the moment he says amen, you know, they chow down.
Nice.
But go ahead, Laura.
I kind of forgot already. I got into the pigs thing. I'm like, oh my God. Because I started thinking like, well, pigs can reach a really high intelligence level. So like you could probably do more than that. But
I feel like every animal can. It's just like the
I
degree
think it's,
of.
sorry,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, I was just going to say, I think it's us needing to learn how to communicate with them. We expect everything to know how to communicate with us. And if it's like something like dogs, right? Like they actually speak different languages literally to outside races, right? And we as humans are only trying to figure out how to communicate with each other and what's above. And we've forgotten the connection that we have with everything else. So I think it's a matter of us training ourselves to also pick up on like what animals and plants and all of that are saying around us.
I don't even think we learned to communicate with each other.
Nope.
I don't think we have either.
I'm so
But that's-
obsessed with human communication, and most of my books now are about that. It seems. Now there's certain people that when they talk and they drop a book, I buy it immediately. One of those books that someone that I look up to mentioned was called "Be the Pack Leader" by Cesar Millan, and it talks about how he manages all his dogs and he establishes authority with those animals. And there's some pretty interesting things in there that can be translated to human nature.
I'm sure. Like again, we can't forget the fact that we're all running off of the same energy.
Mhm.
And so we're always interacting on some of the same level, at least, you know, on a pretty frequent basis for us to even affirm that we exist, that each other exists. You know, like even just on that level, there's an agreement that's happening on a vibratory level right there that's of the same makeup. So yeah, like I think it's fascinating how we don't know how to communicate with each other, yet we're obsessed with it. We're obsessed with learning how to communicate with one another, but we still don't know how yet. Or maybe we've already mastered it and we don't realize it.
It's good to look at it on different levels. There's different levels of communication, right? Hell, we have a
way
body
beyond verbal.
language. We have a body language. We have an emotional intelligence. We got verbal communication. We got subliminal communication, which is not done logically. It's not done with A plus B is C. That's one way of communicating, but there's another way of communicating that's very circular, sometimes undetectable, sometimes obvious, but even that doesn't stop it.
I have a sleep track at home that sounds like the rain. It's subliminal messaging throughout all of it. Like, and I love it. Like for me, it helps. But what's interesting is that I remember I saw a lecture a while ago about, they were discussing how subliminal messaging, and they were doing an experiment on if it actually works or not. And so they spent these people went out and they made like subliminal tracks to rain. They wouldn't be able to hear what's underneath. And they said like all types of things like, oh, you smell, you know, everyone thinks, everyone, you know, you just don't feel that good. Like everything's just not really working out. They put these kinds of things in the subliminals, but they sold the tracks as trials to their new like happiness tracks and like confidence boosts. and they and they went to see, and the whole part of the deal was that you came back and told them the results, and almost like over 90% of people came back and they were like, yeah, man, I felt so good afterwards, like everything was working out, da da da. And what they realized during that study was that it was the placebo effect, essentially.
Right.
When it came to subliminals, it was a placebo effect. It was that the people thought and believed that they were getting confidence and happiness, and therefore it automatically worked no matter what was programmed beneath it, because their own belief about it was so much stronger than the actual affirmations that were being said.
They used the symbol to activate what they wanted to activate in the first place. You know, our favorite authors, Bandler and Grinder, they're part of the reason why placebos cannot be sold legally. Really, and he talks about that story in one of his books.
Yeah, they did. That was their experiment. Yeah, they did that.
I have a brother who, when we were little, because I have 3 brothers, and they all look like me. We've all got massive heads. We were little, they were much bigger, or I think our bodies were smaller. But anyways, my brother had this thing where all of a sudden you'd smell a fart and it was horrible, and he'd just start laughing. Like you wouldn't hear it, and he wouldn't tell you, but he'd sit there and watch and make sure that you smelled it. That's the same way that abstract and subliminal communication during conversation can happen. A lot of times
like
you don't realize until it's already in your lungs. By then, it's too late to get mad. You done smelled it.
Oh, Travis, he just implanted something in my head.
Wouldn't be the first time. And he does this. He still does this.
He's just sitting there.
And the thing is, he'll sit there and watch just to make sure, just to watch the reaction. Like, yes, yes. No, man, there's something wrong with that. You can't do that. And I don't like it. And you know what? That kind of subconsciously trained me. And also people with like awful breath. Like I have an automatic habit to stop breathing when someone gets too close. It's automatic. From stank breath and my brother's secret fart bombs. Just when I get around people, I instantly hold my breath. But look, that's subliminal communication. We adapt, we learn. You have options.
I feel like
So
that's
then what?
like go ahead, Laura.
I was just going to ask, what is the definition of subliminal then? If it doesn't work by the affirmations layered by the rain,
Mhm.
how is the subtle smelly fart a subliminal message then? What is a true subliminal message?
The message itself is actually up to the understander. It's up to the receiver. The message is determined. What do they say in NLP, or excuse me, psychology? They say that the message received is how does it go? The message received is a result of the communication. In other words, it doesn't matter what I say, it matters what you understand. And a lot of people don't get that. They get upset when somebody misunderstands them and they try to continue jabbing in the same words. Well, obviously it didn't work the first time. What somebody interprets is the meaning of the conversation. There it goes. That was it. So just like with the placebo effect, it doesn't matter that they said, you know, you're a steamy biscuit, you're a bad person underneath the rain vibes. What happened was people received positivity and courage and confidence from it. That just goes to show that you can turn any symbol into anything. That's your power. That's your free will right there.
And you don't even need to get rid of the thing. Like in our society, we're so obsessed with like, you know, people throw out therapy or something for you to get rid of something, but you don't need to get rid of it.
Nope.
Just take what's in that box. Take the stuff out of that box and then fill it with whatever you want. You don't like the way Pez looks, put a Mento in there.
Oh, yeah. That's how you change reality.
You can hijack the Matrix. Unicorn Diamond Edition.
You should sell that as a pack. $1,000. Reprogramming your subconscious mind, Unicorn Edition, Platinum.
Tried to tell them.
If they can't be told, they must be sold.
Indeed. Everything in our reality is a symbolic representation. Everything is. But you have the very real option to, what's the word? What's the name of that book? With the unicorn on it. Reframing. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's called reframing. You have the very real ability to redefine anything. I was reading on that one yesterday.
Need to finish it. I'm in really slow with books lately. That's why I need to. Like every time I open them, I'm like, yo, why am I not done with this book?
Right. It's a lot of good information. And there's even more. You know, the world of psychology is so wide. Like I found more shit. It just gets so deep, but that's what I'm saying. Like the communication, if we actually do take the time to understand how we think and how we communicate, we start to just naturally clear up a lot of problems that we have. Like I don't have beef with people or misunderstandings, because I used to try so hard to be understood. I need you to understand me. No, I just listen now. Especially in like person. I don't need to talk to you until you're ready to hear what I have to say. But otherwise, I'll listen to you. If it's, you know what I'm saying, not obnoxious.
You're interested in me. I would just ask the questions to make the person feel stupid.
Oh my God, this is great. So everyone knows what to expect.
I've been finding too, there was like a little picture I've been seeing circulating around talking about vaccines and how they're going to kill people. But the only reason why that picture like triggers emotion is because Bill Gates is also on the cover of it. And like that's like if it wasn't Bill Gates, would you honestly be caring?
Right. That symbol
Bill
again.
Gates bought all the farm. So if like, I don't know, Lego, the company that makes Legos, bought all the farms in America, you're gonna make a conspiracy out of that?
Mm-mm. Not unless it was somehow connected to Pizzagate or whatever. I see, because of that happened, and then this person was involved in that, and then QAnon, and then this, and then that.
And it's always like it's someone's personal problem, and then they craft a narrative that mirrors their own out of whatever.
Look at what you're doing to yourself. How does this help you? How did you move forward in life because you know this intricate conspiracy web?
Yep.
It's interesting. But
so my dad now, like I asked him, like, you've been on this stuff for years. What have you really done? You bought one bag of flour. That's it.
What?
It was years ago. I remember Alex Jones talking about like this, and again the power grid. This is back then, power grid, and then the economy. Everything's gonna collapse. It's gonna turn into a new dark ages, and you want to stock up on food, blah blah blah. That was it. He just bought one bag of flour and thought that was game.
He was like, yes, pancakes every day.
I'm ready for the apocalypse now.
I'm ready. I got my bag of flour. Shit, bring it on. Devil is a liar.
Oh, and it's like he also, my dad buys the damn supplements too, like the
Oh yeah,
the iodine because radioactivity. But then in I guess the Watchmen sequel that was on HBO, one of the guys was so traumatized by one of the events in Watchmen so much that he had an alarm that would trigger if that event would happen again. But he did drills with that alarm like 3 times a day. And you're really supposed to only use it twice a year. Using it 3 times a day, finds out that event was actually orchestrated. It wasn't even real. It was orchestrated. And so at the end of the episode, he throws the alarm in the trash. And then like it's still framed there, and he comes back out to pick the alarm back up out of the trash. You couldn't live without it.
Oh,
even though he knew that it was a fabricated event.
think about that. Man. Alora, you asked the question, what is subliminal really? What does liminal mean? Because subliminal means below the liminal level. So what does liminal mean?
Awareness.
In my head, liminals kind of sounds like a slurred minimal. So like very, very low and minimal.
Below,
But I'm
no,
not sure. I don't know.
below the liminal threshold.
Or you want to get Kabbalistic on it, below the lumio threshold.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
Very nice.
What's like, you have stuff in your, I guess, your psyche's awareness, because we know it's not true consciousness. We have stuff in our psyche's awareness, our manas, but everything else that's in our chitta is that subliminal.
Everything else.
I think there was an experiment in the 60s, like when subliminal messaging was really kicking off. A lot of it was images.
Mhm.
But what are they doing? They're basically putting data in your Manipura chakra. So when it loops back and you're accessing that visual data, when everything comes up, you're going to get that, whatever that impulse was.
They
Oh
use,
man, I feel like buying theater food now.
so think of how much deeper the impact is with visuals than just words.
Right? Because really, on that level, the words don't even matter. It was the image
Words never
that
matter.
mattered.
I mean, they trigger. Words are tools to trigger things. And thankfully, I learned early on not to just get on here trying to sound deep and intellectual, but just talk, right? Because I'm talking to people that understand words. But images, those hit you on a deeper level. Words, you already
Yeah.
have me for words. I remember Fight Club when they spliced in the little image, you know, that has a meaning when you see that.
In the original movie, The Exorcist, didn't they like throw demon pictures up like
My
throughout
boy
the whole
Pazuzu.
movie?
Yeah.
I bought a little statue of them too. That's like, there's certain deities I've noticed, like, or deific mass per se. I feel like we all connect to on an individual level, but never really explore them. But when I started exploring them, like, those little intuitional impulses become a lot clearer, and they also become a lot more distinct. So if I'm doing, I kind of combine NLP with the occult, like in totality now. So if I'm doing an NLP style evocation, like I'm gonna hear,
Yeah.
like how Homegirl was talking in the movie, like just basically cussing the whole time. That's like, if I'm working with Pazuzu, that's how I'll hear it. I'll hear like a scraggy voice, like an old person cussing at me. And where if I'm working with Azrael, it's going to be like real silent, but real clear and concise. But I know it's all me. And I guess like really putting a name and face to that, and also putting a voice, and like it also helps to what I talked about earlier, like to keep everything distinct from the little whiny voice, the negative voice that's not really ours.
And it's really helpful even to just have the awareness of the fact that it's not really ours. When we're not paying attention to these voices, they happen subliminally. So we think that they're ours. When we're not familiar with how our voice sounds, we accept all suggestions as if they were coming from us. But when you pay attention to those voices, you can hear that the cadence is different, the tone is different, the pitch is different. But most people
We're going.
aren't paying attention.
No, I saw a clip last night of it's kind of a movie where Like, there's a stereotypical alpha male style jock, and then he has all his, little goons behind him. And the most enthusiastic one is a shorter guy. So all the goons and the jock leaves, and then the main dude's talking to the smaller dude. And it turns out he was a teacher. So just imagine, like, that made me think and like remember all the times in my life like where I've seen that, where someone's like, oh, I don't agree with that, and then like the person who they are influenced by will say, I do agree with it, and then they just change their opinion immediately.
Yeah.
But they really don't notice. Before I was like, they're probably living with some guilt or some regret. These people really don't. Like, if you hit that, being that person's a symbol, if that symbol says anything, you're going to be on it.
My brothers went to a party just the other night, and they were talking about this guy. Well, I don't know if they're watching. Sometimes they do or don't, but we'll call him Joe. Well, anyways, this guy is notorious for just agreeing with whoever says what. So it's like they don't really want to have the conversation because it won't really be productive, because it's just like, But they were just saying, like, they literally went out there and were talking, and this dude was like trying to make a point, and somebody was like, "Nah, I don't think so," and he was like, "Nah, I don't think so," and he went to and then the other person's talking, and like he literally, when he switched his opinion, he went to go stand next to the other dude. How can you live this way?
You do the NLP for me. I just said I'm hungry.
I remember he came over here, and like I saw it with my own eyes one time. There was like this boxing match, whatever, and like, they all came over to watch it. It was cool. And afterwards, I don't know what the hell happened. Like, he was like, "Yeah, Trav, I got something to show you." And he put on like, oh yeah, he was trying to sell me one of those little thumb drives you put in the TV and you get all the channels and shit.
Mm-hmm.
He put it in there and like pulled up like some threesome porn, and I'm like, what is going on? I was like, yeah, man, I don't really do that anymore. I'm kind of, practicing the whole celibate thing. Yeah, man, me too, man. That's
So that's your
I just
history.
watch it sometimes,
Me too.
And a thumb drive sticky.
I also don't watch television. Yeah, man, I'm trying to get.
Why are you selling this to me? It's like you be getting out of rehab and then selling drugs.
How can you do it?
You cured yourself.
I had a guy that I was dating a guy who was like that, and I had to stop dating him because I found myself becoming like frustrated, and I was younger and I was like kind of mean. So like, what, just to kind of, I guess, confirm for myself that like this guy was changing his opinions based on what he thought mine were. There was supposed to be like a shirtless parade that would be happening. And so I started off the conversation with wondering about his viewpoint. I said, okay, what's your viewpoint on that? And he was like, yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. Like, people shouldn't, like, yeah, they should be able to do that. Sure. Women don't need shirts. And then I brought up a counter argument I was like, actually, I disagree with that. Like, blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, oh yeah, I see that. Yeah. Like, what, And I was like, yeah. And then I countered that with, oh, but I see it as how they should be able to, because blah, blah, blah. And he went with it without any question. He changed his whole belief and opinion on this subject just according to what I was saying.
I think that 90% of people are like that. Like, if you find specifically, or if they're by themselves, you can literally fabricate what they need to, like, even if their criteria for agreeing with you is super complex, if you figure it out, you could fabricate it in like a second. But if it's a group of people as well, you could do the same thing. Like, everyone's really a yes person, but they don't, they won't admit it or not aware of it. If you find specifically what that audience says, like how they say yes, it's over.
Yeah. Because people want to appease more than they want harmony more than they want disharmony. And generally that's where you get like leaders coming from too, right? Or people who like lead the conversations. And people have we're ingrained with this behavior to go with the leader. Like there is a very real like oh, like this person has assigned themselves to be a doctor or whatever because they're wearing a lab coat, and this symbol is now allowing me to feel more comfortable with giving my decisions and opinions over to this person because I believe they're going to give me harmony.
Yeah, I've
And
seen.
that's
Go
I
ahead.
think in this case, it's not harmony. I think in this case, it's avoiding conflict.
Yep.
yeah.
I was watching like a. It was like a little when Vice was really killing the game. They were in China and there was this whole industry of hiring white people just for appearance. And then one of them was it was a professional dude, like he does it all day. You just hire him, he'll be whatever you want. So there's like this doctors conference and they're coming out with some, controversial new product. And he's not a doctor at all. He just put on a lab coat, went up there, read from a paper, and then everyone's cheering.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see that happening over here, to be honest. Matter of fact, it has happened over here.
Yep.
I was about to say, yeah, it has happened multiple times.
Interesting.
That's why, like, there's like, I remember there was a whole study on, or all these articles released from like Harvard as to why sugar is good for you. And the information is so counter to that. But these people at Harvard these researchers were paid off literally by the sugar companies to make these statements. So we already have this acting profile, that we already have the actors. We already have that as like a usual thing that affects our daily lives.
Mm-hmm. And there's a scam crypto out there, and in it, like I guess now they got some spokespeople, but for months, perhaps for years, because they've been around for a long time, their main selling point was it was made by a Harvard graduate. Don't even say the name, and people have bought tons, like still sitting on droves of these coins that will never be worth anything.
Authority triggers are an actual thing that have been isolated and studied. And if you just hit
9
those,
out of 10 doctors believe. You could have 2 people in a room, one disagrees, and you still like morph that into 9 out of 10 doctors.
How to Lie with Statistics.
Mm-hmm. Great book.
And here's what I'm saying: like all this stuff is out in the public, but it's like we're so and this is the thing also. What I'm also learning is compassion. Like don't judge people and assume that everyone's a stupid person. It's a lot of people are so wrapped up in the suffering of their lives or the perceived suffering of their lives that it's very difficult to pay attention.
Right. And that's kind of goes on to what Stuff was talking about, like where it's like that, like you increase your awareness and like you're aware of more. Because I compare myself to like now and back then, and I'm like, a lot of this time, this information was right there, but because of what's just in my conscious awareness, I could look at something and not see it.
Mm-hmm.
You could acknowledge something's there, but it doesn't mean, like, it really doesn't mean anything. Actually, I did that instantly before. Like, there's like this little kind of charity thing at a bookshop I was helping out with. Now I'm looking at the cover of the book. And I'm like, I guess I'm kind of, just going with the flow or going with the flow of my thoughts. And I was looking at a cover. I was like, yo, that guy looks like the Reverse Flash on the cover. And later I was just I got into my more analytical mind, and I started thinking about Elon Musk. I'm like, yo, Elon Musk is low-key the Reverse Flash. And I look up at the book cover that I looked at earlier. It says Elon Musk. I did not see the name or him on that the first time.
Wow.
So So what you're saying there, you mentioned about your awareness and the more that you're able to understand and become aware of, the more that you're actually able to perceive.
Mhm.
And even in that example, there was the Reverse Flash comic. There was a separate book that said Elon Musk, but it was close to it.
No. I just thought of the Reverse Flash. Like I was looking at that book,
Okay. The
but
two
I
pieces.
didn't see Elon Musk. It was the same book the whole time. In that moment, I was literally seeing what I wanted to see.
Gotcha.
And I changed the subject of my focus. Sure enough.
Interesting what the unconscious mind can do with the information that is subliminal. By the way, you have options.
Always 3.
Just
Probably-
3 options?
At least.
At least 3.
Yeah, at least. Okay. I'm like, damn. It seems like many. Hold on.
That's enough. Every decision. Just make sure there's 3.
Depression is not an easy thing to treat for everybody. For some people it is, for some people it's not. I just saw a post somebody sent me. There's a dude on Instagram who has a lot of followers, big following, and he recently ended his life. Before doing so, he made a post saying that, hey, I made the decision, I'm gonna do it, I'm gone. And everyone's like, I don't understand, you don't seem depressed. But he made the decision. That was his only option, he felt. Only option. And then there's other people, that might not go that far, but they're heading in that direction because they feel like that's their only option. You have
that's like if like I feel like that's outside of, I have to think about it, but like I guess if you just have one option in general, like, and it's not, if you have one option that's not your goal, then you have no choice but to go backwards. But I'm gonna leave on that note. But love y'all. Stay up on your practices. Can't wait for the book study.
Peace, bro. Love you too.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, depression's a hard thing to, if you don't experience it, everyone experiences it, but if you don't experience it on the level where some people go with it, it's hard to have an opinion on it because it's coming from a point of reference that maybe you've experienced a touch of, but you haven't experienced completely. So my father actually committed suicide when I was 8, and he had depression and he went undiagnosed. He had depression and schizophrenia. And being 11 years in behavioral health, the reason why I got into it was because I wanted to understand how you can go that deep into something. And what I have realized thus far, is that we have this need to identify with a life in this system. And if we can't, we exile ourselves. And it's an unnecessary way to live our lives. I think that we have a really fucked up view of what success is or what living our fulfillment actually is. And so it's very easy when you're already living in a stressful environment that is meant to tear you down. Like, our society is very self-destructive, and we expect people to live within this society and live a happy life when they're not able to actually fulfill whatever it is they may wish to fulfill for stupid reasons. And I think that as we learn the magnitude of that and try to take responsibility for it, we also, though, don't have a way of learning about it. We don't have a system that is alternative to the one that we live in now that's as prevalent. as the one that we live in now, so we can separate ourselves in a way that heals us, not destroys us in the process. And so I think when we have these diagnoses, there is a type of alternative identity that attaches to that we then allow to become us. I become this diagnosis now,
Absolutely.
even though we don't. Yeah, and we're not given alternative methods to seeing that, to seeing another way of how to view this type of life that you're going to be living. We don't see it with honor. We don't see it with respect. We shy away from it as if it's like a weight that we can never get off of our consciousness, but we're the ones that are putting the weight on. So I think that it's very important for there to be another culture that people who have these diagnoses can experience in the path of healing, not in the path of destruction.
Yes.
And I don't think it's their fault that they don't have that as a commonplace thing, because you have to search for it. We're all here because we are because believe it or not, you may not feel like you're disciplined, but you're disciplined. Like more disciplined than most, to even read these books, to try and figure out what environment you're living in and the magnitude and multiplicity of what you actually are and what you are actually experiencing, and then how to take responsibility for that in a way, right? Because also there's I think an acknowledgement that you have on this journey where you have to realize that you're kind of just along for the ride. You're playing it out. You're playing out what is to become. And the best you can do is take it with a light heart and know that it's not going to be all that there is.
Yeah. It's important. It's important. Probably the biggest takeaway I've got from studying the Vedic information is clarity on what it is that you're experiencing. So when we talk about these symptoms, like you mentioned, these titles, these names, it's deeper than that. When someone hears the word depression, we get this generalization, and that's not good, because what are we dealing with? We're dealing with someone's opinion of an idea, of a concept. So it's better to translate it. How do you do depression? Well, low energy, not very social. I feel bad. I feel sad. There's different pieces. And when you put these pieces together, it makes you do depression, right? You can attack depression. You can't handle depression. That's too big. We don't know what that means. But when you break it down into its components, you can manage the components now. Low energy has a solution. Not being social has a solution. Feeling bad has a solution. There's pieces that if you break it down, if you get clarity on it, you can start moving in a progressive direction. But if you sit there with the title that somebody diagnosed you with, if you sit there with the label that someone put on you, what can you do with that other than what they tell you, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't?
Yeah, I'm thinking about, there's a passage in this book that kind of talks about as to why like Agoris go through so much of the tamas, of these like undesired type qualities or experiences in order to reach sattva enlightenment. And in this book, and also I'm trying to remember which other book I was reading, but they were talking about different gurus having different predominant tattvas, right? So you have someone who may be able to cultivate more quickly sattva, because everyone has the three gunas within them, but you have like people who are typically more sattva in nature, right? Like they're more like optimistic. They try to figure things out. They're like the ones that have like kind of this uncanny resilience that you're like, dang, how did you, and it's simply because the way how they view things is of this type. And they consider that the highest quality, like someone who can really make use of their mind and of their surroundings, because they have this ever-changing perspective that constantly serves them. And then you have Rajasic, which is like the next level below that, right? And so that's where you have people who are like very fiery, you know, but their biggest thing is they may have excess of it. So they have to, they are very dominant, and they're able to take control of a situation or direct their will very they're like the motivation, right? So they're always motivated to do something. These are like the soldiers or whatever. But they also have sort of a rigid mindset because of that. It's hard for them to kind of relax. Like it's hard for them to ease into and see optimism because they're sort of always on guard because they're just going in all many different directions. And then you have the tamas, which is what they consider the lowest level, in the sense that you have more shit to go through. Like you take on there's a lot of there is the experience of a burden, or the experience of having these weightier experiences happening to you, and therefore you have a certain perspective that deals within that realm. It's like being part of like the level right before the underworld, you know, like there's like this kind of like murkiness there, but that also has an amazing wisdom that comes with it. And everyone moves through these stages wherever they're at. And I think that we all have this perspective that it has to be done in this lifetime. Well, no, like like it comes over many lifetimes. So I just, I think in my head, when we talk about people's identities or how we interact with each other and our feelings and all that stuff, it comes down to, well, what's our concept of time and what our experience actually is supposed to be of? Like we think that, oh, my whole life is like this, it's always going to be like this. Well, maybe there's lessons in this that you are meant to learn. And then you can continue through like this experience. You can gain all of the wisdom you can from this. For some people, it's going to be more of a struggle. For others, but it doesn't mean it's not an option. Doesn't mean it's not doable. It doesn't mean that you cannot become a guru. Like there's profound wisdom in all of the gunas, and we have all of them. It's a matter of cultivating the ones that we may be imbalanced with. So I wonder, if we had a culture that was like this, would we be dealing with the same issues? We may be dealing with similar things, but they wouldn't necessarily be what we categorize them now. I don't think that schizophrenia would necessarily be the same result or manifestation of schizophrenia as we see it in this country as it would be if there was another culture that countered that. I don't think it would manifest the same way. I think the certain similarities would, but there are the certain patterns and behavior and all that would, but I don't think it would be in the same order or the same way, same as depression. Like, I just kind of wonder these things, because we come from a sick environment. We're all sick. Well, we could be. We are also, oh, well.
Can you imagine how many people would be classified as schizophrenic but are not diagnosed? Can you imagine how many people are depressed but not diagnosed?
Oh, or personality disorders,
but
or
not
all of that. What is that? Those are the gunas. Those are characteristics of the gunas. There's an imbalance. There's more of one guna than the other. So you got to bring it down to the other gunas too. Balance that. See, I'm Libra too. So my mind does, I'm Libra. Wow, I just identified with that. But I do try to find balance, even though I know that balance doesn't ever really exist, right? Because there's no such thing as balance if it's all of the same thing. It's just combinations. So
perspective, right?
Yeah, perspective. But regardless, like the way how I see it is that you just balance your shit out. You're like, okay, I'm feeling like, for me, I feel like I go in the realm of being very airy. Like I'm really like, and I can go to the extremes of things. And then I have this Raja factor too, that really likes to play in. Like if I'm a decision, I'm like, okay, cool, let's do it, and I'll go. And so I have to ground myself. You know, for me, meditation, all the meditation stuff that I typically do is grounding. I feel a lot of power when I connect with the air element and the fire element, but I can easily go into excess. So I always go back to earth. Earth is always my grounding element because it's the thing I have least of. Not least of, but it's the thing that I need to tap into more, I think. But you know, and imagine if everyone sort of thought about this, you know, like kind of the Ayurvedic quality where it's like, okay, am I going way too much into this realm, this air realm over here, right? I'm up too much in my head. Let me check out these other perspectives. See how I can apply it. The thing with depression is finding the willpower.
Yeah.
Because depression, you don't even want to get out of bed. It's like an accomplishment to take a shower. You know, like it's a whole other animal. Or so it feels. So like in those cases, it's like building up the willpower to do those things, to do the basic necessities. So that's Raja.
Not easy. Certainly not easy.
No.
But it's also not impossible. It's also doesn't have to be permanent. There are options, and many people have completely gotten out of that state. I have completely removed myself from that state. It's possible. It really is. It's a matter of effort. And not only effort, but analyzing and understanding and really trying to have a solution-oriented mindset. That's the start of it. That's the start of it. Not to simplify, you know, something so serious, but if you're not looking for solutions, then you're not likely to find them.
And I think that's where you build to your environment to suit that. Like, remember, you gotta brainwash yourself, you know? So like what helped, like, cause I remember some things that sometimes I would have like bouts where I just had to wait for it to pass. I just had to wait. There was like, because there's a feeling of shame almost that can come over you as well. At least from my experience of experiencing episodes and all of that is like, you know, there is like this weight, like, damn, I cannot get this fucking off. And sometimes like what helped me was just actually accepting it as being like, okay, then this is a time for me to do something that's still sattva, that's still helping me, but that I can perform while in this state, you know? So that means I'm going to surround myself with my tarot cards and I'm going to allow myself to eat chocolate, and I'm going to like be in bed and make sure I brush my teeth, you know, take a shower, that kind of thing. But if I need to be in bed, okay, I'm going to be in bed and I'm going to have smelly candles and I'm going to really embrace this fucking moment as like, this is transformation, you know? And that helped me a lot. And I've spoken to others where it also helped them a lot. And a community helps a lot too. When you have friends or people to come over to be like, girl, it's tarot and chocolate night, you know, and you can have that. It's huge. It's huge to know that you are cared for and loved. So you have to set up your environment, I think, especially if you're prone to these episodes and you know it, set up your environment so that you can always have success when it does happen. That works for you.
I'd almost be willing to say that the community aspect would be the most important aspect, because studies are now showing that drug addiction and alcohol addiction and addiction seeking behaviors and depression can almost always be linked to a feeling of isolation and disconnectedness, meaning that you don't have a feeling of a sense of community. Now couple that with antisocial tendencies, you know, us knowing what we know and understanding that we don't really want to be around other people because they're not on the same vibe. When you add that to it, that almost makes it worse.
Yep.
It is really important to and that's one of the things that I talked about in my live presentation in Texas, to know thyself, to trust thyself, and to know thy community. Because for so long I avoided the community aspect, but it's actually really important to have someone to talk to. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I think, and I think what has worked for me that I see works for others too is really doing what you like. When you're feeling good, assess what you like doing and join a club or go to a workshop, because you're at least going to find people who do think similar to you, who do have the same qualities that can work well with you. You have similar learning styles and similar interests, which is super beneficial. Like, community doesn't have to be your neighbor. You don't have to get along with all your neighbors, but do something that you love and go out and meet people doing it. If it's comic books or playing Magic the Gathering, dude, I think Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons is literally like the greatest community building platform like there is. I think it's incredible. Like book clubs, incredible. Like these certain things, that you can, and if you're like more active, get involved in like martial arts or whatever, like do something. But that comes with also accepting yourself. Like, you have to be okay with being seen, because really that's what you're doing. You're going out and you're being seen within the community, and you're saying, hi, I am blah, blah, blah. I'm this person, and here I am. I think we could be friends. Maybe? No? Okay, next. Okay, yeah, all right. You're feeling this too? Cool. All right, let's go. Then boom. What, like, so the process begins.
Yance says, who trying to get on Halo Infinite later?
Gaming.
I only play Fortnite right now, my man.
I feel like Halo, you can have really good connections with people over that kind of stuff, but I just wonder, like, man, that's a very militaristic kind of thing, right? Like, I don't know. I'm not big into Halo, but it just kind of seems like really intense setting.
I had some of my best moments with Halo, man. I remember being so much younger. We would it was nothing like it. Like back before this whole multiplayer shit online came out, before that, we would literally gather all the homies up. People would be toting full televisions in their car, not this little thin shit that y'all kids have today. Them fat, heavy TVs. We would be putting those in our cars, go to one person's apartment or trailer, and every room would have like 2 TVs and an Xbox. And there'd be I don't know, 16 to 20 people in there yelling and screaming and having pizza. And it was just the best time ever. Like, you don't get that anymore.
I agree. That was my experience with Mario Brothers when I was a kid. You'd have you'd have the cord with all the different like joysticks or whatever, and you could you'd play on the Dreamcast. Yep. And then Wii came out, and Wii was even better because they had like Wii hula hoop and all kinds of stuff. And oh my God, it is so funny to see people doing that kind of game, virtual reality. I feel like it's sort of the same thing.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, like all that shit is so important. The thing about it, well, yeah. And then too, though, if you're going through, there is I think too, we have a terrible epidemic of complacency that is trained within us that we constantly need to break, and kind of rewire in our heads, because a lot of people can just get comfortable being in a very slow motion kind of state. And it is important to actually get up and to do different stuff, you know, like even just for your brain, you prevent dementia and Alzheimer's by learning new things constantly. We have to stay awake and active. And we also have to know when to slow down. But I think that there is a factor, and once you start getting involved within your community, to also just kind of continue for yourself, travel and go to completely different places. And however that might be, but I think you need to go to different places and learn different humans live on the planet.
That helps, especially getting out of your routine and your small space. It helps to break routine every now and then, physically, emotionally, mentally. It helps.
And it helps to see how others do theirs. Like, you may pick up shit that works for you, or you may experience something that doesn't. But it's a different experience that you're putting yourself to. And by doing that, you learn how to better your own situation. At least that's my viewpoint. Like, whenever I've traveled, I've realized how typically when I travel, I go to the communities, into the communities. I don't go to touristy spots. And it's typically because I have a friend over there or something like that. And so I'll go and hang out on their couch or whatever and soak it up. And there is a thing with us United States people where we don't really think of others. We expect community, but we don't really contribute. If I had a moment where everyone was cleaning, and in my head, I had already, from the days previously, I had been doing the dishes or whatever. And so that day I was like, no, it's my last day. I'm just going to hang out. And I'm going to take this phone call, and then I'm going to, and then I'll see what's up afterwards. And everyone noticed because I had completely missed the point that night they were going to be having a party, and they were setting up for the party, for the going away party, and that everyone was working and everyone was cleaning. I had come up with my own selfish rationalization of just oh, well, I had done this before, I don't need to contribute, without realizing that the whole idea was that as a group, we create this space, we clean it up, and we create this really beautiful going away thing that completely just went right over my head. And and so that was taken as a character thing. They're like, shit, she just must not give a fuck, or whatever. And that was, but I wouldn't have experienced that in the United States, it's kind of it makes you kind of look at how you approach other people, and if you're actually noticing what's happening in the environment around you, or are you just kind of expecting people to come into your space and you're not having to contribute or something, I do think, as a North American, at least in my experiences, going to different places and sharing and actually being in a communal environment, you have to either already have grown up with plenty siblings and have had that growing up throughout your life, or maybe always had roommates and stuff like that. But being a part of a community is a different culture that we got to learn.
Yeah.
We got to learn about it.
One of many ways to expand. But you just look at how we've got these words and these labels, but there's an essence behind them all. You talked about the three gunas being Rajas, Sattva, and Tamas. And depression is very much a tamasic state. And when you think about a tamasic state, it deals with decay and stagnation and death and being very slow, full of gravity. All those are just words describing an essence. But notice how similar it is to depression. These moods and emotions and states that we feel are very much connected to the three essences that make up matter, the three gunas. And like what we talked about earlier, with Ladder of Lights, and how each one of the spheres of the Kabbalah in the Yetziratic realm deal with a specific emotional state. So yeah, this all very much connects psychology and spirituality, magic. It really is all one big hodgepodge of the same thing.
Yeah. 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 Like it all just kind of repeats itself after a little while, but it's a constant combination of formulas that are taking place. So like it's never going to be stagnant. The same thing may be happening, but it's never going to be the same thing may be happening. Yeah, I don't know how I want to word that. I don't know how I'd word that, but this microcosm that we're living in is within a macrocosm. And so what we experience within the microcosm is only limited by our concept of it. I don't even know. I'm gonna retract. Boop. I don't know.
All symbols are limited in what they can evoke based on our connection with them. Again, I see a picture of Donald Trump and I don't feel the same as if my baby mama's father sees a picture of Donald Trump. He's going to go ballistic. But we have different connections to those symbols. Same thing with a pentagram or a cross, Star of David, Tree of Life. We build the associations. That's one of the things that was stated in all the Kabbalistic books, but especially Ladder of Lights. It's up to us to do the work to build the associations. Otherwise, they're just pictures. They're just pictures.
I think that's what makes that book super valuable, is that he's starting from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's super valuable, because that's kind of the concept that I always had. Like whenever I would read, these books, like the Mystical Kabbalah and all of that, they're fantastic books for explaining the structure and what it is. And they explain the levels, but they don't necessarily talk about going from ground up. And I think it's an excellent point that he brings up, where it's like, that's where you are. Always meet someone where they're at.
Yeah. Yeah. But also noting that the authors were intending for different audiences. Beyond Fortune wasn't trying to spill secrets. She was trying to clarify complex subject matter for her students.
Yeah. And like, honestly, even though that was my first introduction to it, it was so useful because now I'm able to apply it to what I'm learning with this book.
Yeah. And there's much more to go. We ain't even really get started.
I know. Those 2 chapters,
yeah. I'm really looking forward to a guide to Kabbalistic Symbolism by Gareth Knight, because that's kind of like Mystical Kabbalah Part 2. And I got the original versions.
Ooh.
But yeah, I've only had a surface level understanding of the paths. And that's something I definitely hope to tackle this year. Yeah, come the summertime, man, there's not going to be any more confusion about Kabbalah shit, at least with me. Because, you never really hear about the 4 worlds or the significance or how the part that they play. So either that's like just guarded information or nobody's gone that far recently.
Can you elaborate more on that?
On what?
On how you said that a lot of them talk about the places and stuff, but not really the channels.
I haven't really seen much information about the four worlds other than, just like basic surface level stuff. I've never really seen it explained in ways that make sense to me. And
Okay.
that leads me to understand that either one, it's information that's kind of kept, close, or two, sufficient exploration hasn't been done to the point that it can be explained. And knowing what I know about people, it's probably that second one, and that it's never been explained, but just in our modern times, nobody in this public sphere, I suppose, is really getting into this info.
Well, what would the explanation be covering? Like, what would it be about?
How these concepts can be apprehended and made sense of, right? When I say four worlds of the Kabbalah, what does that mean? Well, there's four trees, right? Like how do you make it make sense? How do you make it to where you can explain it to somebody?
That's hard. I don't know. That's
right. I'm not asking you. I'm just saying that has been an issue in the past, and it will be resolved these coming months.
like it will be resolved. No, for sure. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I would like to get more into the past, into figuring out the past, because we get so involved in the destination. Like we get so, and this, I speak for myself, I get so carried away in like the end result, like, oh, and then this result creates this cause, whatever, and then this makes this other result, like I get way too carried out. I get very much carried away in stuff where I'm not really looking at the process. And so I think the channels would be very, very, very beneficial to learn, because that's what we're moving through, a channel before we get to that next stop of the ladder. Indeed. Literally where we are. So maybe not literally, but that's kind of where we are.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just excited as always to dig into this information.
That'll be cool, man. No, it will be cool. Are we gonna? So when is what book is next?
Next up on the menu is a book called The Path of Poverty and Nivriti by Swami Niranjan Ananda Saraswati.
Okay, cool.
That'll be January. And then February, March, April, May will be 4 other books by him. In the background, I'm going to be going through Ladder of Lights, Tree of Life by Israel Regardie, and a Kabbalistic Guide to Symbolism, whatever it's called, by Gareth Knight. And there's another one. And then June, Mystical Kabbalah again.
Nice. That is a very sweet combination.
I think so.
What do you think the book of Pravriti will what do you think that'll bring? Like, how do you think that'll correlate with the Kabbalah? Like, what do you think? Do you think that's going to be mainly sort of like a prana book, like just kind of understanding the energy, or what are you expecting to kind of happen there?
So the same way that you'd stand in the room with my brother, and then suddenly you'd smell that disgusting fart, and then he'd laugh a maniacal laugh because he had a roundabout way of getting that smell to your nose and watching you suffer through smelling it, is a similar way that I've arranged these books to be read. While The Path of Poverty and Nivriti doesn't really have anything to do with the Tree of Life, these books in succession help to orient the mind towards Jnana Yoga. which is the yoga of the mind, the yoga of clear understanding, which is highly necessary to have a clear understanding of anything, especially something as complex as Kabbalah. I think that the path of poverty and nivriti is a first step because it helps to illustrate the mindset to approach a spiritual life in the world at large. You feel me? How to be,
So it's kind of like,
how to walk a spiritual path in a world that is not very spiritually focused. It's not directives like do this, do this, do this, but it speaks on the mindset and it illustrates both. Nice metaphors. The way that Niranjan Ananda writes is very, very, very clear. He doesn't waste any words. But all these yoga books that I laid out here are really meant to help orient the mind towards having a clear understanding of what you're doing. Yoga for the mind.
yeah, like basically it clears the mind space and equips it to be able to handle the information that's coming from the occult realm.
Yes. A way of
Which
emptying
is
your
super
cup.
important. Huh?
A way of emptying your cup, basically, before trying to have it filled up. Because really, to learn this information, I would say that it's best approached when you don't bring any preconceived notions into it.
Which is like nearly impossible, right?
Yeah, but it's almost like a kung fu stance. You know, you're kind of prepared to act in a certain way. I've read all these. Well, the books that I have here, I've read them all already, but it's like I'm going back over them with a fresh pair of eyes. You know, because every time I reread a book, I get new stuff out of it.
Yeah, like the yoga books, I feel like are very much like reference books. Like you will always get a new understanding when you open it up again. Like even if you don't read straight all the way through, no matter where you open up in that book, you can pick to a random page and there's going to be something new that you pick up each time. You're like, oh, yeah, that's what they mean. Because at that point, you would have already experienced something happening in your life at that time that was different from when you originally picked up the book. So now you're going to have a different experience to relate with what you're reading in the book, which is then going to plant some seeds in your mind that helps you to be able to actually handle all types of situations that happen. Because if we use these as reference books, they're always going to be handy. In like any situation, you're always going to be going back to like, okay, clearing the mind space or getting or kind of realigning. Okay, that's where this is from, you know. That's what I'm working with.
There's a story in the beginning that literally just illustrates our journey from Kether to Malkuth and then back again. Now, I know I said it doesn't have anything directly to do with the Tree of Life, but the story is the same no matter where you look. So you kind of, the Bible is about the Tree of Life, for crying out loud. But what I mean is this isn't going to talk about the 10 spheres and the paths. It talks about your individual experience. Talks about a personal series of discipline. The path of Nivriti. Nivriti means lessening of the vrittis. Do you remember what vrittis are?
Vrittis are the attachments that we have to like the superficial stuff, right? Like
the disturbances. When you see that symbol and you have that emotional spike, that's a vritti. When you see Donald Trump, you all of a sudden get all enraged and that's a vritti.
Yeah,
right?
Those are like the unconscious sort of maybe conscious too, but those are like the attachments we have to like certain things that make us repel it instead of kind of seeing it for what it is.
It don't even have to be negative, just a emotional spike. That reaction right there to a symbol, that's subliminal. It's below the liminal level. You're not in control of having that reaction. That's not free will. When you see a picture of Donald Trump and get upset, that's not free will. That's a vritti, right? So in order to like I said, to have that sharpening of the mind, that foundation to work from, say, you know, because there may be things that you experience when working with the tree of life or with any system of magic that are going to cause you to have an emotional reaction. And if you don't have a ways of dealing with that, of lessening that emotional spike, then once again, you're not under free will. You're being influenced heavily by something that is out of your conscious control.
That's like when we look at a certain commercial, or like what even they use on like products, you know, they'll say like this product is green, and we automatically match green with like something biodegradable, earth friendly, organic, and we buy it instead of actually looking at the ingredients and being like, oh shit, this is this is gonna kill everything. You know, we don't look at that though, because it says green on it and the bottle's green, or the bottle is made out of cardboard. It must be good for the earth. So wait, you started reading about the vrittis. In the beginning, you said it mentioned it?
The path of nivriti is the path of lessening the vrittis.
Oh, I don't know why that just sunk in right now. Okay, so this book is the path of lessening all those vrittis. That's very valuable. Very valuable. Wow, that is so valuable. That's huge. Ooh, okay. I see.
For those who pay attention during that book study, you know, they'll have the antidote for being influenced by mimetic magic. I don't expect everybody to, but at least you'll have the opportunity.
You can even kind of pick and choose what you want to keep and what you want to leave. Like it literally will give you the option to kind of choose.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about as far as reframing and redefining the symbols that have an influence on us in life. But, you know, most of us don't think to that level that we even have conscious control over the things that influence us. You have a person in your life that makes you feel bad, who makes you feel insecure, who makes you feel small, right? You have the power to change that relationship. That doesn't mean you go up to them and say, oh, well, don't you talk to me like that anymore. You know, and you can do that if you can. But the real change takes place when you redefine how you interpret your experience. No solution is external. None of the solutions are external. Not killing anybody, not changing no damn laws. Nothing is external. The solution is internal.
Yeah, I remember I used to work in a group home where we dealt with kids who were like the most violent from 7 years old to 17. Like they were the most violent. And so I got used to being cussed out like every day and having like kids like literally try to stab me and do like crazy shit when like, you know, they'd get upset or something like that. And my job was to have a schedule to implement that would literally, like, it's like brainwashing, okay? Like they have bedtimes and stuff like that. And whether they go to sleep that night or not, like, doesn't matter. They're waking up at the same time that day. They're going to have a breakfast that we lay out for them. And then they're going to follow a schedule, and they must follow the schedule. And the whole idea of the schedule was to irritate them. So then like but they was doing basic stuff. Like you'd have to play Frisbee for a half hour. And then once you're done playing Frisbee, we'll go and do 2 hours of education. Then after that, we'll have lunch. Then after that, we have opportunity plan, you know, things like this, but that you may not always, there's going to be things that you're not always going to want to do. Like education was the worst, you know, like everyone acted out in education. They were like, ah! You know, and so when they would act out, that's when you would implement the coping skill. And you would do that by waiting them out. They would attack you. They would do all kinds of stuff. You just put them in a hold, bring them to a Zen room, which is a room that's covered with mats and stuff like that. And you hold up the mat and you say, all right, hit it, but you're not going to hit me. And you stay in there with them for as long as it takes until they start to de-escalate. And from that point, that's when you start talking to them and giving them simple direction. And then you start implementing positive stuff to them, like affirmations, like it's going to be okay, you're doing good, like whatever. You talk to them. The entire time this happened, right? And I was in this job for like, I think a year and a half. I was doing it. I was in this setting like for 14 hours a day. Okay. Like dealing with these kinds of kids. And it was all based off of how you acted as a person. You had to maintain your frame throughout the entire time. And what's interesting is I never held a grudge against any one of these kids, or I never saw it outside of anything as like, I know they went through some crap and they're projecting this because they're upset. And it was so clear to me as to how I could maintain myself throughout this. But when it was someone like in my family and they do something that's not even remotely close to what these kids would try to pull, it was all of a sudden a different reality.
Mm-hmm.
Because of my attachment to the relationship that we're supposed to have, and and what I defined as that relationship, my vritti to that relationship.
Exactly.
But nothing changed. Like there was still conflict, and I could still react to it the same way how I would react to these kids who would literally try to stab me or like throw things and like boulders and stuff like that. I had a kid try to hit me with barbed wire and I had to dodge it, like crazy shit. And someone in my family though says something off to me, all of a sudden, there's this whole assumption daydream that jumps in where it's like, oh, you've been planning this, and it takes over all of my eyesight. So if you learn to all of a sudden to be able to disconnect from those vrittis, from symbols, from these attachments that you have, you can then maintain yourself in any circumstance and be able to withdraw and actually have a cup half full, right? And be able to continue to direct your focus to where you actually want it to go.
It's true. It's true. And these are things that, as long as you continue working on yourself and working on the triggers that compel you to do things, you'll eventually make it to that point. Anybody, you eventually make it to that point.
Yeah, but you know how.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know how. So this is like super important,
We have options. You have options. It's just about realizing them and not even realizing the options, but understanding that you do have options. You do. We all do. You have the option to be a jackass. You have the option to learn something. We have the option to suffer, especially with things that we know we're going to suffer through. Do it anyway. We also have the option to learn from our mistakes and not do that anymore. We have the option to use YouTube to listen to music videos all day. We also have it to listen to, to be educated in some way. It's options. It's up to you. But it all depends on having a clear idea of where you're trying to go. That will always remain as like the foremost. Know your outcome. Everything else lines up with that. That's the first step. Before any technique, before any script or any trick or whatever, know your outcome. I
gotta head out, Trav. It's time for me to train. But thank you for having this session. It was awesome. I look forward to the next. Peace out, everyone. Love you all.
Peace out. Love you. Okie dokie. That's a great question, Matthew Watson. Is loving someone an attachment? That's good. And that does come up. That does come up frequently, you know? And I think about it. And this is one thing that I notice when I analyze myself, I'm able to slice things out. Like I mentioned before, when I went through the process of fasting, I started to notice that there was a part of me that craved sweets. And I felt that whenever I wanted to taste something sweet or I wanted to taste something salty, my mind, my body had a specific craving. And you notice that when you fast. So I began to pay attention to love. And that really helped me to pay attention and separate the fact that there is attachment and then what remains is love. Because for the most part, when people talk about love, they're talking about attachment. Oh, I don't want to be away from so and so because I feel bad if I'm not with them. Or I like the feeling that I get when I'm around them, or the memory of them makes me feel good. That's mostly attachment stuff. But what happens when you remove all the attachment from what you call love? What remains? What remains? You know, say for example, you know, parents. You may not see your parents every single day, but you still love them, right? You still care about their well-being, or I speak for myself. I care about my parents' well-being. I want to know that they're okay, that they're all right, that they're doing fine. You know, I don't call them, I don't talk to them all the time. That doesn't mean I don't love them, but I'm not attached. So I learned when it comes to love, I try to identify how much of it is attachment, and then I deal with that. But that's a really good question. Thank you. Ukamiva bandhanat mrityon mokshya mamritat. Okie dokie. Well, I think I'm going to head out too. Yes, indeed. Yeah. So remember, we're going to be getting back into the book study very soon. Right now, we're just kind of doing the Sunday discussion. And, you know, I really felt the need that it was important to talk about the subjects we did because, you know, just the season and the time that we're in, and a lot of people that I've spoken with are not necessarily in the best emotional state. And I think that it has more to do with an overall wave than individual people. I think that a lot of people are kind of feeling kind of down right now, and that's all right. Don't beat yourself up. You have options. You absolutely have options. Kite mama. Peace, peace. The Asia divine jewel. Greetings, greetings. But yeah, life is good. It's good. Remember to be grateful. You know, it doesn't have to be anything super magnificent. You can be grateful for the air that you breathe. You can be grateful for the sun. You just be grateful. At least try it. Try it for a few minutes. If you're feeling depressed, anxious, any of those things, one way to move out of that state, because it's a state, right? You do depression, right? These labels that you've been diagnosed with, it's an overall term that's hard to deal with. So analyze the small parts that make it up, right? When you talk about doing depression, you're talking about, like I said before, low energy state, being antisocial, not really having a will to be social, low motivation, different things like that. Break down the components and adjust the components, because if those components together equal depression, well, if you change the recipe, if you change the components, it's going to equal something different. You see what I'm saying? So when I say spend a few minutes thinking about gratitude, that's going to shift the components and at least get you started to being oriented towards a constructive trance state, a constructive state of mind, a constructive way of being. All right. Now, for those of you who this doesn't apply to, cool. But for those who are going through situations, just try it. Let the proof explain it to you. Let the prove it to yourself. Don't just take my words. Prove it to yourself. But yeah, I'm gonna head out. Thank you all for spending time with us here on this live stream. I appreciate you. And yeah, we're back on Sundays. That's that. That's that. I got Greta says, thanks for the knowledge, my brother. I'm going to start calling you baby Bobby Hemmett. It works. I like Bobby Hemmett. I think he's really cool. I learned a whole lot from him. Aset Aja, I'm grateful for sharing this space with you all. Thank you, Trav, for sharing your platform knowledge. It was nice meeting you in person. That was really cool. Straight Panther, peace, brother. Society Ejects says my next Sunday is my birthday. I will be on 33. Okay. Awesome. Changing spiritually. Love you. Love you too. All right. Al Dickey. Peace. Moon Goddess. Peace. Queen of Swords. Peace. And thanks for hanging out with us. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't, because, you know, we're going to be doing this. And also sign up for the book study group. Just click the join button next to the subscribe. And yeah, hopefully by the time we start reading these books, you guys will want to come on and discuss what you've read, because I'm open for that. I like to hear other people's, you know, graspings of this information, because sometimes that adds to what I learn. So if you want to be a part of this, then by all means, you're welcome to do so. Winter Night Creatrix, good to see you. Stay cool. Hikate, you're awesome. Who loves orange soda? Peace, bro. I didn't finish that spider book, but thank you for sharing it, because yeah, there's some awesome astral plane stuff there. Holy shit. It's really cool, because I mean, some of that stuff I was doing before, I had no idea that it was like a thing. So yeah, thank you for that. All right, y'all, I'm gonna go. Peace out. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX 777. I love you guys. Peace.